Chapter 183. After settling the matter, Yu Qianqiu brought his father back to Utopia's ethereal palace. Yu Changgui was speechless. In the blink of an eye, they had arrived at another place, which was a little hard for him to accept. However, after thinking about it, he felt relieved. His son was no longer immortal. The palace-like building in front of him shocked him even more. Furthermore, it was built on the top of a mountain. How much manpower and money must have been spent to build this? The cold stars shone in the sky. Standing at the top of the mountain, he felt like he could pluck the stars with his hands. He did not dare to speak loudly. "Father, come in." Yu Qianqiu saw his father standing outside the palace in a daze and could not help but call out. "What is this place?" Yu Changgui asked. Yu Qianqiu scratched his head and said with a smile, "Of course it's my territory. You can live here without worry." Yu Changgui nodded and walked in with his son with a stomach full of doubts. As soon as they entered, they saw Yu Wuqiu running around happily and touching everywhere. The glowing crystals embedded in the walls were especially attractive to him. Seeing that his father and brother had arrived, Yu Wuqiu ran over and pulled his father. He said in surprise, "Father, look, there are glowing stones everywhere." He did not pay attention to his youngest son's words and casually replied. Along the way, he saw beautiful women everywhere. There was not a single man, which made him feel a little strange. Could it be that his son was the only man in the entire palace? Bai Suzhen had already ordered people to arrange the rooms for this family. At this moment, she was chatting with Shuaernyang. Shuaernyang was holding her hand and laughing non-stop. Her eyes were full of little stars. The family of four finally met in the ethereal palace. Yu Qianqiu heaved a sigh of relief. He looked around and seemed to feel that something was missing. After thinking for a while, he secretly felt that something was wrong. He immediately disappeared from the palace in a flash and appeared directly on the roof of the ethereal palace. A graceful figure was leaning on the railing. Her shoulders were shaking non-stop, and one could faintly hear the sound of sobbing. Yu Qianqiu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It seemed that he was angry and couldn't control his emotions. He seemed to have pushed Chu Ping'er and said something rather provocative. Women were very sensitive creatures. Sometimes, a wrong word could make her imagination run wild. Not to mention that his words and actions were so hurtful. This was really a terrible thing. But at the same time, women were easy to coax. He didn't know if he could fool her. "Ah. Ping-er, why are you crying?" Yu Qianqiu's tone was filled with surprise. He walked over and hugged her from behind. He lowered his body and asked, "Baby, what's wrong? Who bullied you? Don't touch me." Chu Ping'er pushed him away and walked to the side, not even looking at him. "Damn it, did those maidservants downstairs bully you? Just you wait, I'll kill them all right now to appease your anger." He spoke as if he had a deep grudge against someone, as if he really wanted to kill someone. "Shameless. You were the one who..." She turned around and saw a pool of blood on Yu Qianqiu's chest. She couldn't continue her sentence. But her pretty face was wet. It was obvious that she had just washed it with her tears. Yu Qianqiu ran over and said with a smile, Look. I'm back to the feeling of being scolded by you when I peeped at you bathing in Anquangsung." Chu Ping'er was so angry that her body trembled. She gritted her teeth and spat out the word, "shameless," again. Hee. Scold me all you want. As long as it can appease your anger, I don't mind if you kill me." Yu Qianqiu bowed and said. Chu Ping'er turned around and didn't look at him anymore. This man's previous actions hurt her too much. It was as if she was just his plaything, a dispensable plaything. "Ping'er, don't be angry. I was impulsive just now, I don't want to listen to your explanation. Let me go. I want to go back to Anquangsung. From today onwards, we'll pretend that nothing happened between us." Chu Ping'er's words were resolute, leaving no room for negotiation. "Ping'er, listen to my explanation." I don't want to listen." Chu Ping'er covered her ears with both hands and screamed. Her voice pierced through the night sky, causing many people to run out of Misty Palace to look at the top of the palace. Bai Sujan teleported to the top and stood not far from the two of them. Not long after, the Yu family of 3 also arrived at the top of the stairs. Yu Qianqiu was stunned. After a long time, he sighed and said, "Looks like you've made up your mind to leave this place and leave me." "Yes," Chu Ping'er said without hesitation. She was indeed heartbroken. "There's no room for negotiation?" "No." Yu Qianqiu nodded sadly and said, "All right. I won't force you." He took a deep breath and sighed. "We met in Angquangsung, but now we're going to be separated in Misty Palace. We were clearly in love, but why did we end up like this? It's all my fault." Sigh. "Back when we were in Angquangsung, you asked me when you'd be able to hear my music again. I've always kept that in mind. Now that you're leaving, I'll treat it as a song for you and for me. Let me remember this day." There was a stone platform at the top of Misty Palace that was a few meters tall. It was inlaid with fluorescent stones. This was the zither platform that Yu Qianqiu had specially built for Bai Sujan. He turned around resolutely with a desolate look on his face and leaped onto the platform. He summoned a zither out of thin air and sat down dejectedly. The night breeze blew, and the sky turned white. The women downstairs looked up, wondering why he was so depressed tonight. His 10 fingers plucked the strings bit by bit, and the sorrowful sound of the zither rang along with the breeze. It made one's heart wrench slightly. Yu Qianqiu's voice was a little hoarse as he sang, "This time, I've really decided to leave. I want to distance myself from those sorrows that I haven't understood for a long time. I want you to forget about your worries and care, to let go of all the distractions and be free. That time, it was your unintentional departure that became my unchanging sorrow. Thus, I became indifferent to prosperity and could no longer be happy. Thus, I guarded the loneliness and could not return." After he finished singing, the zither continued to play along with Yu Qianqiu's fingers. Everyone in Misty Palace was moved. Chu Ping'er suddenly turned around and looked at him, her eyes blurred. Bai Sujan sighed and looked at Chu Ping'er. "How could you bear to leave such a man?" "Mother, who's leaving brother? Brother is so pitiful." Little Wu Chou pulled her mother's hand and looked at her pitifully. Shuaernyang, on the other hand, had tears in her eyes. She leaned her head on Yu Changgui's shoulder and sobbed softly. Yu Changgui looked at Chu Ping'er, looked at Bai Sujan, and then looked at Yu Qianqiu. His face twitched as he thought to himself, "As expected of my son. The pupil has surpassed the teacher. But when did this brat learn to play this trick?" There was a saying that women were the easiest to see through other women's pretense, and men were the easiest to see through men's pretentious looks. This saying was right. Yu Qianqiu's crooked thoughts were seen through by a certain someone. Yu Qianqiu smiled bitterly and continued singing, "This time, I've really decided to leave. I want to distance myself from those sorrows that I haven't understood for a long time. I want you to forget your worries and care, to let go of all these worries and be free. That time, it was your unintentional departure that became my unchanging sorrow. Thus, I became indifferent to prosperity and could no longer be happy. Thus, I guarded the loneliness and could not return. Ah. You can pick the falling afterglow, ah. Keep the moment forever for you." Women were the easiest to feel emotional. At this moment, many of the women downstairs were already crying uncontrollably. They even tried their best to cover their mouths to prevent themselves from crying. Some of them wanted to know who had made the Lord of Utopia so sad that he actually sang such a sorrowful song. As for the culprit, her face was already covered in tears when she recalled the past. She knew that this song was sung for her. It was sung for her, that time, "It was your unintentional departure that became my unchanging sorrow. Thus, I became indifferent to prosperity and was only happy for you. I wanted to accompany you to distance yourself from loneliness and be free." The song gradually stopped. The sound of the zither was accompanied by a gentle breeze that caressed the disappointed and dazed face on the stage. It gradually became sparse, dim, distant, and dissipated. Chapter 184. Yu Changui looked around and smiled. He held little Wu Chou with one hand and his wife, who was sobbing softly, with the other. He said, "This is their own business. We don't need to worry about it." Then, he led the mother and son away from the stage. Before he left, he glanced at his eldest son meaningfully. Bai Suzhen also left the stage quietly. Yu Qianqiu put away his zither and jumped down from the stage. He walked to Chu Ping, and stretched out his hand. He sighed and said, "Give me your hand. I will walk you out." Hearing this, Chu Ping came back to her senses. She bit her lips and hesitated for a long time. However, she did not stretch out her hand. Yu Qianqiu, on the other hand, calmly waited with his hand outstretched. "Are you hurt?" Chu Ping stared at the blood stain on his chest and asked suddenly. Yu Qianqiu withdrew his hand and patted his chest. He looked at her with a faint smile and said, "It's nothing. I just spat out 2 mouthfuls of blood." Chu Ping's eyes flickered. She deliberately avoided Yu Qianqiu's gaze. She bit her lips and said, "You left in a hurry just now. Did you have something important to do?" "Why? Are you willing to listen to my explanation?" Yu Qianqiu did not ask any more questions. He did not want to make her feel awkward. Otherwise, if he annoyed her, his show just now would have been in vain. He changed the topic and explained, "Kuangsung's sect master Lu Changqing wanted to take revenge on me. He found my family in the secular world. Fortunately, I went back in time. Otherwise, I would never see my parents again." "Ah. Sect master? You?" Chu Ping was surprised. She finally understood why Yu Qianqiu was so angry. No one could ignore the safety of his parents. However, she still felt a little wronged. "Us? As soon as we met, we naturally fought." Yu Qianqiu smiled and snorted, "I'm afraid the Blue Light School will have to change its leader now." "Ah. What did you do to the sect leader?" "Kuangsung can't let a dead man be the sect leader, right?" "You killed the sect leader?" Chu Ping's face was filled with shock. She had always been a member of the Kuangsung sect. It was hard for her to accept that the sect leader was killed by her own man. Yu Qianqiu looked at her and smiled. I can see that your anger has subsided. There's a saying in the secular world, if you marry a chicken, follow the chicken. If you marry a dog, follow the dog. Now that you're my woman, I don't want Kuangsung to be more important than me in your heart. Forget it. As for your master, I will bring her here as soon as possible. You should believe that I will do what I promised you. Right now, there's something very important. My parents are also in the ethereal palace. As their daughter-in-law, are you not going to pay them a visit?" "Ah. Meet your parents. Your parents are here too." Chu Ping did not know where to put her hands and feet. She was completely flustered. She could only blame herself for not paying attention. Otherwise, she would have seen it. At this moment, Kuangsung and Master, as well as the grievances she had suffered, were all thrown to the back of her mind. Her expression was filled with anxiety. "Easy done." Yu Qianqiu smiled slyly and grabbed her hand, dragging her down. "An ugly daughter-in-law has to meet her parents-in-law. Let's go." "Ah. Am I ugly now?" "Wait, look at my face and see if my hair is messed up. Let me change my clothes first. Don't drag me down. Please let me tidy up first." "Ah." Chu Ping was so scared that she screamed and struggled. Yu Qianqiu could not be bothered with her. He picked her up by the waist and carried her down on his shoulder. What happened next was quite exciting. After the introductions, Chu Ping stood in front of Yu Qianqiu's parents. Little Wu Chou stared at this sister-in-law with her eyes wide open. Yu Qianqiu did not join them. He walked out of the palace with Bai Suzhen. The two of them stood at the edge of the cliff, enjoying the coolness of the dawn. They looked at the starry sky that was about to fade away. Yu Qianqiu enjoyed this feeling very much. When he was alone with Bai Suzhen, his heart was always so calm, peaceful, and worry-free. "Are you all right?" Bai Suzhen pulled up a strand of hair that was messed up by the mountain wind and asked calmly. Looking at the sky quietly, Yu Qianqiu shook his head and said, "I think I'm all right. I've coaxed you and comforted you. I can't do anything if you keep tormenting me. This time, I really decided to leave. I want to stay away from the sorrow that I haven't understood for a long time. I want you to forget the sorrow and care, to let go of all the troubles and be free." Bai Suzhen looked at the sky with him with gentle eyes and opened her red lips slightly, singing softly. She had a good memory. She could always repeat the song word by word after listening to it. She also sang it very well, which was quite charming when it came out of her mouth. Yu Qianqiu could not help singing softly with her. "That time, you left inadvertently, which became my unchanging sorrow for a long time. Therefore, I became indifferent to prosperity and could no longer be happy. Therefore, I could not return to loneliness." After the song was finished, the two of them fell silent again. After a while, Bai Suzhen took out the green destiny sword from her storage bag and said, "I have wiped away all the divine senses in this green destiny sword. Although such a dharma treasure cannot be compared to a spiritual treasure, it still has some spirituality. You can inject your divine senses into it and become its owner. With more communication, you should be able to understand its effects. It will be helpful for you when you travel outside in the future." Yu Qianqiu took over the green destiny sword and examined it carefully. The body of the sword was blue and cold. There were exquisite patterns on it, and the blade was shining with a cold glow. It was abnormally sharp. He could refine some ordinary dharma treasures now, but he did not know how such a dharma treasure was refined. A wisp of divine senses was slowly injected into the body of the sword. Suddenly, a faintly discernible mysterious force gushed out from nowhere, as though it was rejecting the injection of Yu Qianqiu's divine senses. Yu Qianqiu's divine senses exerted a little force and immediately broke through that rejecting force. His divine senses flowed into the body of the sword, and he instantly understood the structure of the body of the sword. Now was not the time to understand it. The sky was already bright, and it was almost time to meet up with Bai Zizong and the rest. After keeping the green destiny sword in his storage bag, Yu Qianqiu said, "Sister, I'm going to take a look at the 4 major clans. I'm not sure if it's convenient for me to come back anytime. I'll have to trouble you to take care of my family in Chuping. Are we leaving now? Let's go check on Guan Yu's injuries first. Then, I'll go to Chen Feng's place to retrieve 100 flying swords. The original ones were destroyed by Lu Changqing. You should inform Chu Ping, and your parents first." Yu Qianqiu pondered for a while and said, "I won't. It's fine as long as you know. If they ask, just explain it to them." I got it." Yu Qianqiu looked at Bai Suzhen and smiled. Seeing a strand of her hair fluttering in the wind, he stretched out his hand and gently tucked it behind her ear. She looked at the sky indifferently and let him do whatever he wanted. He teleported to Guan Yu's room in the military camp. Guan Yu was sitting cross-legged to treat his injuries while the 3 company commanders were guarding by the side. When they saw Yu Qianqiu, they wanted to greet Guan Yu, but he waved his hand to stop them, indicating that they should not disturb Guan Yu. He then gestured to ask how Guan Yu was doing. One of the company commanders waved his hand to indicate that it was not a big problem. Yu Qianqiu nodded. In front of them, he changed his blood-stained clothes and left with a peace of mind. When he came to the bottom of the valley, it had become Manager Chen Feng's territory. As for the treasures that were originally stored here, they had all been transferred to the secret chamber when the ethereal palace was built. The entrance to the secret chamber was in Bai Suzhen's room. Other than Yu Qianqiu and Bai Suzhen, no one else could enter. At this time, Chen Feng was engrossed in alchemy. Looking at his sloppy appearance, he looked quite formidable. Yu Qianqiu thought about it and decided not to disturb him. After ordering 2 people to bring 100 flying swords, he appeared again in his own room in the Cultivation Alliance. When he said goodbye to Quan Deming, he naturally had to accept some reminders from the other party. Yu Qianqiu also put on a look of humility and acceptance. After he came out, he walked directly to the Bai clan's shop. Bai Zizong and the other three were already waiting for him. The five of them left the 100 Flowers Valley. Bai Zizong released a flying instrument and carried them away. Chapter 185. The four great families in the cultivation world did not accept disciples as widely as other sections. Instead, they had been in the cultivation world for many years in the way of the family. They neither regarded themselves as righteous nor as demonic. In this cultivation world, which was clearly divided, one had to say that they were different. The Bai, Jing, Wu, and Tan clans were established with formations. For example, the hidden secret pavilion in the 100 Flowers Valley was opened by the Tan clan. Most of the storage bags used by the hidden secret pavilion were from the hidden secret pavilion. Storage bags weren't something ordinary people could make. Without profound formation knowledge, it was impossible to even think about it. The Wu clan was established with their auction house. This was a business that was built on their reputation. Everyone in the cultivation world knew that the Wu clan's eyes for appraising items weren't ordinary. Everything that was auctioned by the Wu clan wasn't fake. At least, it was like that for now. As long as people had money, they could buy anything they liked without worry. With such a good reputation, the Wu clan's auction house naturally had a monopoly position. However, the commission they took was relatively high. The Jing clan was established with blacksmithing. In the entire cultivation world, there probably wasn't any sect that could surpass the Jing clan in blacksmithing, including the supporting Immortal Island. The flying artifacts that the various sects used were almost all from the Jing clan. Although it wasn't considered a magic treasure and only had a simple function of enlarging or shrinking, it was impossible without profound blacksmithing skills. This kind of seemingly simple artifact was something that the various sects couldn't make. The Bai clan was a rather mysterious clan. They rarely moved around outside. The few shops they had were all selling insignificant items. It was similar to a shop that sold goods. However, this low-profile clan was willingly led by the other three major clans. They were the number one clan among the four major clans. There was a legend that the four major clans were originally one clan. The Jing, Wu, and Tan clans were the servants of the Bai clan. However, they separated from the Bai clan and became the four major clans. That was why the three clans were still led by the Bai clan. Yu Qianqiu naturally heard about this. Right now, there was still half a day before they arrived at the Wu clan. He was a bit bored on the flying artifact, so he asked about this topic. Zizong, rumor has it that your four great families were originally one family. Is that true? Yu Qianqiu asked curiously. Hearing that, Wu Licheng, who was controlling the flying instrument, turned around and exchanged glances with the other three. Bai Zizong shook his head and said, whether this rumor is true or not, let alone you, even the four of us don't know. Whether it's true or not, I'm afraid that only the elders and the elders of the four families know. Oh. Yu Qianqiu asked curiously, aren't the four of you the first successors of the four great clans? How could you not know about it? Yes, he is the first successor, but he is only the first successor, not the only successor. Bai Zizong smiled bitterly and said, in every generation, each of our four families has four successors, and there are more than one or two of the first successors who can't successfully become the head of the family. This will only be known when the head of the family retires. It's still too early now, until the end, who knows what changes will happen. For heirs, I'm afraid the competition will be a little intense. Yu Qianqiu smiled and did not say anything more. Whenever such a situation occurred, the story behind it was usually more exciting. Sigh. I know. Jingzhua, who was at the side, looked outside and said in a daze. The other three also had bitter smiles on their faces. Yu Qianqiu tactfully stopped asking questions. He stood up and looked at the flowing clouds receding rapidly. The world below would change from time to time, and the scenery would often change. It was not too tiresome to look at. The Wu clan was located in a remote and deep mountain, and the people who interacted with this clan were all high-ranking cultivators. If it was in the secular world, it would be too shocking. Most of the other cultivation sects were like this, as they wouldn't disturb each other with the people of the secular world. The flying artifact slowed down and flew at a low altitude. After passing through a dense primeval forest, the view before him suddenly opened up. A large manor that was connected together appeared in front of him. Behind the manor was a huge waterfall. The flowing water split into two along the river, circling around the manor on both sides, and then converging to form a river from the other side into the distance. It was Yu Qianzhou's first time seeing such a huge manor. The buildings inside were extraordinary, and it was needless to guess that the Wu clan of the four major clans had arrived. When they were flying in the sky, they could see that the entire manor was shaped like an egg, and there was a small river connecting the two sides of the river, separating one side of the egg. Tan Fei pointed at the place that was separated like a hat and said, "That is the place where the Wu clan holds their auctions, and it is also a place for people to rest. This side of the river is where the Wu clan lives, and ordinary people are not allowed to cross this river." Yu Qianzhou nodded. It seemed like these people came here often, and they were very familiar with this place. The flying artifact suddenly stopped in mid-air, and Wu Liqing took out a jade archive, which shot a white light into a tall tower in front of them. Yu Qianzhou looked around and saw that there were more than a dozen similar towers. After the person on the tower waved his hand in approval, Wu Liqing controlled the flying artifact to descend, and landed in a courtyard. The few of them jumped down, and the artifact was stored away. Yu Qianzhou was looking around, and suddenly, a white light shot out from behind the rockery, aiming straight for his head. F***CK. Yu Qianzhou let out a strange cry, and jumped to the side. He pointed his finger, and 12 white lights immediately flashed out from his storage pouch. One of them struck down the flying sword, 6 of them protected his body, and the remaining 5 shot straight at the rockery. "Brother Yu, please have mercy!" Wu Liqing shouted, but it was too late. Rumble. 5 cold lights flashed, and the rockery was smashed into pieces. Behind the rockery, a young girl stood dumbstruck, and had nowhere to hide, because 5 bright flying swords were pointed at her. "Gentlemen, what is the meaning of this?" Yu Qianzhou shouted coldly, and the flying sword that struck down the white light was pressed against the young girl's neck, as if it would kill her on the spot if she was displeased. The 6 flying swords that protected her were meant to guard against the remaining 4 people. This was the first time the 4 of them had seen Yu Qianzhou in action, and he was able to control 12 flying swords at the same time. Not only was he able to deal with one, he was also able to guard against the remaining 4 at the same time. To be able to attract the attention of both the righteous and devil Dao, he was indeed extraordinary. Bai Zitsong waved his hand, and smiled bitterly, "Brother Yu, please don't misunderstand. This is Yu Qianzhou's sister, and she has always been mischievous and likes to play tricks on people. Even the 3 of us were not spared when we first came here." "Is that so?" Yu Qianzhou looked around vigilantly, to see if there were any other ambushes. Of course, no one would dare to be careless when ambushed. This was a matter of life and death. Wu Liqing cupped his hands, and said, "Brother Yu, please be merciful. This is really my sister, Wu Lixue. She definitely has no intention of harming Brother Yu, please let her go." The others also followed suit. At this time, a dozen people flashed by, obviously startled by the commotion here. The leader was a middle-aged couple, the man was tall and handsome, and the woman was dignified. When they saw the scene in the courtyard, they were shocked. Wu Liqing walked over and greeted, "Father, Mother." Bai Zitsong and the other 2 also greeted, "Uncle, Auntie." The man waved his hand at them, and looked at Yu Qianzhou, and said, "Could this be Fuxian Island's Yu Qianzhou?" "Li Cheng, what is going on?" Wu Liqing smiled bitterly, and told the whole story. The couple didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and the dozen people around them looked at each other, and lowered their weapons. Who knew that the young girl would start crying, and said, "Father, Mother, quickly save Shui Er, he wants to kill me." Sob sob. Chapter 186. Yu Qianzhou was not an idiot. Although he was shocked just now, he could tell from everyone's conversation that this girl was from a big family and had never suffered any losses. She was a spoiled girl. However, her appearance and figure were really good. Even when she was crying, she was still so beautiful. Especially under the threat of Chu Yang's flying sword, her tall and slender figure stood straight. That was not an ordinary kind of good. She had a curvaceous figure and long legs. She could compete with Chu Pinger, but it was a completely different style. The flying sword returned to her side, and 12 cold lights danced around her body. With a xiao sound, they all went into the storage bag. The girl immediately ran to everyone's side and threw herself into her mother's arms, crying. It was probably the first time she experienced what it meant to be on the verge of death. She was really scared. She ran past Yu Qianqiu, and Yu Qianqiu experienced what it meant to be a turbulent wave. That trembling could not even be tied up. In order to maintain his demeanor, he forcibly controlled his gaze. The young woman's name was Zhu Xuanqiu, and she was constantly comforting her daughter. The man's name was Wu Huagan, and he shouted, "Why are you crying? You clearly know that it's a guest. How can you be like this?" Wu Lixue raised her head and wiped away her tears. She explained, "Who told you to say that Yu Qianqiu is so powerful? I just wanted to see how powerful he is. Do you know now? If he didn't show mercy, you would have lost your life." The man shouted sternly. Hearing this, Wu Lixue shuddered and did not say anything else. She sneaked a glance at Yu Qianqiu and a sliver of fear appeared on her face. No one had ever treated her like this before. If it were not for her brother's warning, Yu Qianqiu might have killed her. Wu Liqing shook his head and smiled bitterly. He said, "Father, Mother, this is the Yu Qianqiu that I told you about." He then introduced them to Yu Qianqiu. "Brother Yu, this is my father and mother." Things were clear now. Yu Qianqiu didn't want to pursue the matter further. He walked over and bowed. "Yu Qianqiu greets uncle and auntie. I was too impulsive just now. It's none of your business. Anyone who encounters such a thing would be the same. This girl has been spoiled too much." Wu Huagan waved his hand and clicked his tongue. Supporting Immortal Island is indeed the world's #1 sect. Their disciples are truly extraordinary. This is the first time I've seen someone controlling 12 flying swords at the same time. Legend has it that in ancient times, there was a myriad swords devil monarch who could control tens of thousands of flying swords at the same time. I didn't expect the supporting Immortal Island to have such a mystical sword art. This is truly an eye-opener. Hey! The supporting Immortal Island does have it, but it's all fake. It looks good, but it's useless. His is the real deal. Yu Qianqiu replied humbly, "You flatter me, uncle." "Alright, it's over. Liqing, take care of the guests on behalf of the Wu clan. We won't disturb you anymore," Wu Huagan said to his son and led everyone away. Zhu Xuanqiu suddenly realized that his daughter was still in a daze and asked curiously, "Shui, aren't you leaving?" Wu Lixue hesitated for a while and said timidly, "Shui, made a mistake just now. I want to accompany the guests with my brother as an apology." Everyone looked at each other and felt as if the sun had risen from the west. Wu Huagan smiled, "Let her be. Let's go." Zhu Xuanqiu frowned and glanced at Yu Qianqiu before following her husband and the rest out of the courtyard. After everyone left, Wu Liqing looked at Wu Lixue with a troubled expression and said, "Why are you staying?" Wu Lixue glared and shouted, "Father has already agreed, it's none of your business." Then, as if she thought of something, she glanced at Yu Qianqiu and lowered her voice, "You don't have to care about me, I'll just follow you." Yu Qianqiu was overjoyed. It was good to have a beauty accompanying him. Moreover, it was a hot girl. The waves were surging. Wu Liqing couldn't be bothered with his sister and smiled at Yu Qianqiu, "Brother Yu, I'm sorry about what happened just now. Oh yes, this courtyard is for you to rest. Zitsong and the rest stay here every time they come. Go in and see if you're satisfied. If not, you can change." Yu Qianqiu looked around. The environment was elegant and the main hall had the words, "Quiet Guest House," written on it. There was nothing bad about it, so he smiled and said, "It's fine, how can the place Zitsong and the rest stay be bad? Moreover, I'm not a picky person. Why don't you bring me around your Wu clan? I've heard of it for a long time." This. Wu Liqing was a little troubled and said, "Brother Yu, to tell you the truth, our family has a rule that outsiders are not allowed to enter many places without the permission of the parents or the Elders Guild. If you want to go around, you can only go to the Hat Island that specializes in auctions." Yu Qianqiu was stunned, then he smiled and said, "I understand, it's the same for Fuxian Island. Why don't we go to Hat Island for a walk? What do you think?" "Okay, Brother Yu, please." Wu Liqing walked with him and said, "Brother Yu, you don't know, this is the place where the families live and cultivate, there's nothing to see. For our Wu family, Hat Island is actually a more interesting place. Usually, we can't even go there without permission." The five of them walked in front. Wu Lixue fell a few meters behind and followed them obediently without saying a word. Bai Zitsong and the other two turned around and looked at each other. They had a tacit understanding and smiled at each other. They had already experienced this girl's craziness. Sometimes, it was really annoying. However, they didn't want to teach her a lesson for the sake of the four great clans. Now, she had been messed with by Yu Qianqiu. Along the way, they met many people who greeted Wu Liqing, and some nodded at Bai Zitsong and the other two. Obviously, the three of them were also regular customers here. When the passers-by saw Wu Lixue behind them, they felt a little strange. Why was this girl so obedient today? Did she change? Yu Qianqiu looked around. Indeed, as Wu Liqing said, there was nothing strange. However, this was probably the core area of the Wu family. The Wu family's area was really big. They walked for about an hour before they reached the bridge by the river. The sky was already getting dark, but when they looked back, there weren't many changes. On the other side of the river, Hat Island was already brightly lit, and it looked lively. When they crossed the bridge, they were questioned by the guard. After knowing that Wu Liqing was here to greet guests, they were allowed to go after registering. It seemed like the Wu family was really strict with their own disciples. It was also at this time that Wu Lixue followed closely behind them. Obviously, she was afraid that she wouldn't be able to cross alone. After crossing the bridge, Yu Qianqiu looked at the bright lights before him. He did not dare to believe that such a place would appear in the depths of the mountains. There were people coming and going, and judging by their clothes, there were people from the righteous and demonic sections. Yu Qianqiu smiled and said, "Brother Wu, before I came, Elder Quan told me that there is a shop of our supporting Immortals Island here. He asked me to come and greet them so that the sect can be at ease. I'm not familiar with this place, so I hope Brother Wu can lead me to the shop of supporting Immortals Island." "Heh, follow me," Wu Liqing said as they walked. "Not only is there a shop of supporting Immortals Island here, but there are also shops of all the major sections. Although it isn't as good as the 100 Flowers Valley, it isn't much worse." After finding the shop of supporting Immortals Island, Yu Qianqiu went in and reported his identity. The shop was managed by a late-stage nascent soul disciple from the Secular Objects Hall. He claimed that he had already received news from the sect and that the sect master had personally passed a message for him to be more careful outside. At the same time, he said that he would inform the sect of his arrival as soon as possible. Yu Qianqiu thanked him and left. However, he found it strange that the sect master of supporting Immortals Island was concerned about him personally. When Bai Zitsong and the other three who were accompanying him heard this, they were speechless. What exactly was the background of this Yu Qianqiu? It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the number of core formation realm disciples in supporting Immortals Island was as many as the hairs on a cow. However, the sect master of the world's #1 sect had such an honorable identity, yet he was concerned about him at all times. It was simply unbelievable. After strolling for quite a while, they saw that the crowded places weren't far away. Yu Qianqiu asked curiously, "Brother Wu, I think this place is much livelier than the 100 Flowers Valley. Why are you saying that it isn't as good as the 100 Flowers Valley?" Wu Liqing said with a smile, the 100 Flowers Valley has a deep background. At the same time, it has the support of supporting Immortal's Island and the 10,000 demons. There really isn't a second good trading place in the cultivation world. You can see so many people now because tomorrow is the grandest auction in the cultivation world that happens once every 5 years. That's why there are so many people here. Once the festive period is over, it will naturally be much quieter. It can't be compared to the 100 Flowers Valley. Haha. Yu Qianshou said with a smile, if the 100 Flowers Valley also starts to hold auctions, wouldn't it steal your Wu clan's business? Wu Liqing smiled but didn't answer. Bai Zizong snorted and said, the 100 Flowers Valley already has the support of the righteous and devil sects. It is already very conspicuous. If they also steal the business of the 4 major clans, I'm afraid they will become too popular and make everyone jealous. When that time comes, no one will be able to protect them. Yu Qianshou thought about it and agreed. It was good to be the richest person in the world, but it wouldn't be good if all the poor people in the world had their eyes on you. You would be in danger of being divided up at any time. After going around many places, Wu Lixue followed behind them and looked around in high spirits. There were too many people, and there were a few times when she almost lost them. This might be the reason why she didn't come out too often. However, because her appearance was too outstanding, she had already attracted many people's attention. It was better for the Righteous Path's disciples as they had to consider their status even if they wanted to take a look. Some of the Evil Path's disciples were used to acting casually and were sizing her up without any restraint. Their eyes lingered on her protruding body and almost touched it. If she wasn't wearing the Wu clan's attire and this was the Wu clan's territory, something might have happened. Bai Zizong and the others were frowning, but they didn't want to spoil Yu Qianshou's interest since it was his first time here. They intentionally slowed down their pace and tried not to get too far away from Wu Lixue. Yu Qianshou finally noticed it too. He laughed and said, Brother Wu, I love good food. Are there any good restaurants around here? Can you bring me there to have a taste? Wu Liqing was happy to see this. He pointed at a magnificent restaurant in front of him and said, that Gula house is owned by my Wu family. It can barely be considered the best restaurant in this area. The food and wine are also good. Brother Yu, why don't you go there and have a seat? Yu Qianshou had already seen that 3-story restaurant, so he said it on purpose. He nodded and smiled, it's built by the river, and the water is murmuring. Muru residence? Interesting. Let's go there. They went in. Wu Liqing was familiar with this place, so he asked for a good private room. When they climbed to the 3rd floor, a few people came down. The leader was surprised and said, Brother Yu, ha. Why are you guys here? Yu Qianshou took a look. It was none other than Yan Zhuixing from the 100 Flowers Valley. He cupped his hands and said, Brother Yan, why are you here too? Bai Zizong and the other 3 also cupped their hands. Although they did not like him, they could not pretend not to know him since they had eaten his food. Haha. I'm here for the auction tomorrow. Are you guys going to the private room upstairs? Yan Zhuixing smiled. He glanced at Wu Lixue behind them and was slightly stunned. It was not his fault. Wu Lixue's body was too hot. Any man would not be a man if he did not take a few more glances at her. But that was often the case. Once people had a prejudice against someone, even the smallest flaws would be magnified infinitely. His actions were nothing in the eyes of Bai Zizong and the other 3. That's right, Yu Qianshou looked around and smiled. The sky has just turned dark and Brother Yan is already full? No. Yan Zhuixing came back to his senses and smiled. The private room upstairs is too boring. On the contrary, the lobby downstairs is wide open. It's nice to be able to drink with water. I've asked the waiter to change the window to a place near the river. Oh right, why don't you guys come with us? I'll treat you guys to a drink. That's not good. How can we always let Brother Yan treat us? Why don't we? Yu Qianshou dragged the latter part of his sentence on purpose. As expected, he was not disappointed. Yan Zhuixing grabbed him and said warmly, brother you don't have to be so courteous with me. Please give me face. He dragged him away as he said. Damn it. Only an idiot would not take advantage of such an opportunity. Yu Qianqiu blinked his eyes as he passed by Zizong and the other three. He said as he walked, since Brother Yen is so hospitable, we won't reject him. Let's all come together. They looked at each other and followed him. Wu Lixue also saw Yu Qianqiu blinking her eyes. She didn't know what he was doing with her brothers, but she thought it must be fun. So, she followed them without inviting her. Sitting by the window and listening to the sound of flowing water, it was indeed a unique scene, although there were a lot of people around. Seeing that everyone had taken their seats, Wu Lixue sat beside her brother. It seemed that she didn't know how to be courteous. The people following Yan Juexing should be his underlings. They found a seat and sat down. This is? Yan Juexing looked at Wu Lixue and asked. Wu Liqing shook his head and smiled bitterly. This is my sister. I came uninvited, please forgive me, Brother Yen. Oh. So it's Brother Wu's sister. What a beauty. Yan Juexing praised. Hearing someone praise her beauty, Wu Lixue immediately smiled and glanced at Yu Qianqiu. It was as though she was saying, look at how good my taste is. You are the only one who doesn't know how to be protective of the fairer sex. Yu Qianqiu saw it, but he ignored her. The nicer you treated such a woman, the more cocky she would be. After a while, all the dishes were served. It was probably because business was too good that the waiter in the restaurant was too busy to take care of everything. The few of them drank and chatted, but they were all polite words. Yu Qianqiu placed more attention on eliminating the food. The dishes here were delicious. His table manners made Wu Lixue raise her eyebrows. Was it that delicious? She also had a huge appetite. Not long after, the wine on the table was emptied, but the waiter was too busy. At this moment, Wu Lixue volunteered, I'll go get it. Before anyone could react, she had already run to the counter. Wu Liqing said awkwardly, I've embarrassed myself in front of everyone. I'm used to being careless. I don't know what it means to be reserved. Why do you say that? This is your sister's true character. It's not something other women can learn, said Yan Juexing with a smile. Wu Liqing waved his hand and smiled bitterly. He looked speechlessly at his sister. Suddenly, his face sank as he stood up. He saw that Wu Lixue was being pulled by someone by the arm. When the others saw this, their expressions also darkened, and they stood up. Yu Qianqiu was eating with relish. When he saw the few of them, he held a pig trotter that he hadn't taken a few bites of. He turned his head in confusion and was immediately taken aback. Taking liberties with an innocent woman in public? Following that, he instinctively swung his arm and smashed the pig trotter at the table. Chapter 187. No matter how weak the people at the table were, they wouldn't be hit by Yu Qianqiu's pig trotter. When they heard the whistling sound, they all dodged before they could see what it was. Bang! The dishes on the table were smashed. Although they dodged, the pig trotter hit the table. The soup and water splashed everywhere. Not many people around were spared. The man who grabbed Wu Lixue let go and looked at Yu Qianqiu. He shouted, who did this? Wu Lixue wasn't a kind person. Once her hands were released, she immediately clenched her fist and punched the man's face. Unfortunately, the difference in their cultivation was too big. She was in the middle stage of the foundation building realm while he was in the late stage of the core formation realm. The man casually caught her fist. With a twist, he lifted her arm behind her back and restrained her again. Let her go. Wu Liqing shouted and leaped over with a flash. Bai Zizong and the other two followed closely behind him. The four of them had always been united against a common enemy. Yan Juexing also followed. If he didn't drag them downstairs, they probably wouldn't have encountered such a situation. Naturally, he couldn't stay out of it. The subordinates he brought with him also followed him. Yu Qianqiu casually grabbed a roast duck that was missing a leg from the table, and walked over unsteadily. Both sides were at daggers drawn, and it seemed like they were about to start fighting. However, Wu Lixue was in their hands, so Wu Liqing didn't dare to act rashly. He kept asking them to let her go. The surrounding diners immediately vacated a space. First, it was convenient for both sides to fight. Second, they were afraid of getting involved. The man who grabbed Wu Lixue sized him up and couldn't help but sneer. So it's a disciple from the 4 major clans. What's wrong with your Wu clan? Putting aside the fact that we came all the way here, you don't even give face to the Wu clan and even insulted us. Is this how your Wu clan treats its guests? The person he was talking about was naturally Wu Lixue. So, it's a senior from the Luo sect. I am 100 Flowers Palace's Yan Juixing. I hope that everyone can give me some face and let this matter go. It won't be good for anyone if this matter blows up. Yan Juixing was trying to mediate. Both sides were not new to the cultivation world, so they could naturally tell which sect they were from just by looking at each other's clothes. The man sneered, "Give you face? When did the Flower Palace interfere in the matters of the 4 great clans? Who was Yan Juixing of the 100 Flower Palace? Do you know him?" The people behind him immediately laughed, indicating that they had never heard of this person. This was a disguised form of humiliation to him. Yan Juixing's expression changed slightly, but he still said politely, "Let's talk things out. Please let them go first." "I can let her go, but she has to accompany me for this drink. Otherwise, how will my Luo sect keep its face?" said the man as he looked at Wu Lixue. His eyes swept back and forth between her ample bosom. "Since when did the Luo sect have an opera singer?" asked Yu Qianqiu as he walked over with a roast duck in his hands. He suddenly said in a daze, "Wu Lixue, what are you doing with him?" Yu Qianqiu's expression instantly turned ugly. He poked out an oily finger, pointed at the man's nose, and shouted, "Are you the one who said you want my woman to accompany you for a drink?" By Zizong's group, Yan Juixing, and the rest were all stunned. The surrounding people were in an uproar. Everyone naturally recognized that Yu Qianqiu was wearing the uniform of supporting Immortal's island. This De Luo sect's disciple, who was ranked number 2 in the righteous sects, captured the woman of supporting Immortal's island's disciple to accompany him for a drink? And supporting Immortal's island was ranked number 1 in the righteous sections. This was going to be a show. The people from De Luo sect's expression changed. If it was really as Yu Qianqiu said, then this matter was a little big. For a sect like the Luo sect, as long as they didn't meet people from 100 Flowers Palace in the 100 Flowers Valley, to put it bluntly, they didn't have to give face. It was good that you had the support of the number 1 sect, but 100 Flowers Palace wasn't the number 1 sect. In your territory, they had to give face to you. Otherwise, they wouldn't give face to supporting Immortal's island and 10,000 demons. But outside, there was no reason for De Luo sect, which was ranked number 2, to lower their head. Therefore, they didn't give face to Yan Juixing. But Yu Qianqiu was different. He was a true disciple of supporting Immortal's island. Now, he had captured his woman to accompany him for a drink. Although it was a sophistry, the surrounding people weren't fools. Who couldn't see through his intentions? This was clearly a slap to supporting Immortal's island's face. Most importantly, supporting Immortal's island's strength wasn't something that De Luo sect could compare to. They could easily deal with several De Luo sect. This was the difference between the number 1 and number 2 sections. Wu Lixue was struggling just now. When she heard that she had become someone else's woman, she looked at Yu Qianqiu in a daze and forgot to struggle. The man frowned and said, "Are you really a disciple of supporting Immortal's island?" Since the matter had already happened, he had to think of a way to solve it. He had slapped supporting Immortal's island's face in public. When he returned to De Luo sect, the sect wouldn't let him go. They would definitely punish him harshly to show the other sects in the cultivation world. At the same time, he would also give supporting Immortal's island an explanation. Otherwise, no one could bear the anger of supporting Immortal's island. Even the number 1 sect of Devil Dao, the 10,000 demons, wouldn't be able to bear it. When Yu Qianqiu thought about the death of his master, Hao Sansi, he felt a sharp pain in his heart. With an ashen face, he said word by word, "I am supporting Immortal's Island's Yu Qianqiu." Wow. Yu Qianqiu? Yu Qianqiu of supporting Immortal's Island? Yu Qianqiu who beat the grandson of An Kuangsung in public? The surrounding people immediately became lively. None of them had seen Yu Qianqiu before. However, Yu Qianqiu's name was known by almost everyone in the cultivation world. Some of them even muttered in their hearts, "So he is the Yu Qianqiu who rampaged in the demon domain?" In short, everyone felt that Daluo's sect had indeed caused a huge commotion this time. This Yu Qianqiu was a madman who dared to beat up the grandson of An Kuangsung in front of all the righteous cultivators in the world. Just imagine what a person like him wouldn't do, especially when Daluo's sect actually captured his woman to drink with him. Wasn't this a bit too much of a joke? Bai Zizong and the other three looked at each other. Judging from Yu Qianqiu's expression, this guy's acting was too realistic. The four of them now believed that Yu Qianqiu was a loyal person. For the sake of his brother, he purposely took the blame for himself. It was rare to see such a person in the cultivation world. The four of them sighed, deeply feeling that they had made a good friend. The faces of the Daluo sect members twitched. What a coincidence. Did they just happen to provoke this madman? The man said awkwardly, "So it's brother Yu. This is really a misunderstanding, really a misunderstanding. You still won't let go of my woman? Misunderstanding my ass." Yu Qianqiu roared. Hearing this, the man finally reacted. As soon as he loosened his grip, he saw a black shadow flying towards him. He felt a violent impact on his face and was sent flying. Buzz. Everyone was in an uproar. That madman really made a move. He used a roast duck to smash the man. Hearing this, Yu Qianqiu grabbed the roast duck and slammed it heavily on the man's face. The duck was smashed into pieces. That person was caught off guard and was sent flying with a bang. Yu Qianqiu followed after him in a flash. Before Yu Qianqiu landed on the ground, Yu Qianqiu kicked Yu Qianqiu's waist. Then, Yu Qianqiu swung his elbow down fiercely, hitting Yu Qianqiu's chest with a bang. Everyone clearly heard the sound of the man's sternum breaking. As soon as he landed, Yu Qianqiu gave him another kick to the head. With a bang, that person slid across the ground. His face was stuck to the ground, leaving behind a trail of blood. He knocked over a few tables and fell unconscious under one of them, motionless. Everyone was dazzled and dumbfounded. This series of actions was completed in a few blinks of an eye. A cultivator in the late core formation stage was beaten up by a few punches and kicks. Cultivators could fight like this? Usually, everyone focused on how to improve their cultivation level and how to get a good magic tool. When they fought, it was a battle of cultivation level. Flying swords fought back and forth, often killing the enemy from 100 meters away. Who would have nothing better to do than to practice the punches and kicks of mortals? To them, a group of mortals, no matter how strong they were, could be killed in an instant with a flying sword. Who would be disdainful to practice this? It was simply unheard of for cultivators to fight at such a close distance. Yu Qianqiu's actions had completely subverted everyone's perception. In fact, Yu Qianqiu had never practiced this before. However, the experience from his previous life was all in his mind. Moreover, he was a cultivator in this life, so his punches and kicks were even more flexible. His true essence circulated, and his punches and kicks were powerful and powerful. Most importantly, he especially enjoyed the thrill of punching and kicking his opponents, especially those he hated or hated. The feeling of hitting someone with my own hands was very satisfying, and it allowed him to fully vent his anger. Of course, this usually depended on the situation. You couldn't just clench your fist and charge forward while the opponent was glaring at you with a flying sword. Wouldn't that be courting death? Yu Qianqiu still wanted to rush over and beat him up. The people from the Daluo sect reacted. With a flash, several swords appeared between the two of them. One of them shouted, "Assistant Yu Qianqiu." Even if we did something wrong, you've already hit us. Do you want to kill us? Do you know who you just beat up? F***CK. I don't care who he is. Our Fu Xian Island never provokes others. Today, your De Luo sect has gone too far. Yu Qianqiu sneered. Bai Zizong and the other three also wielded their swords and stood in front of him to protect him. Although the four major clans didn't get involved in the fights of other sects, Yu Qianqiu was standing up for them. How could they just ignore it? Wu Lixue, who was standing at the side, opened her alluring mouth slightly. She looked at the unconscious person on the ground, then looked at Yu Qianqiu. The latter's actions just now were too valiant. This kind of direct and almost brutal attack, coupled with the words, "my woman," made her heart beat wildly. Seeing that things had come to this, Yan Zhuixing couldn't get involved anymore. He could only stand by the side. However, this was the second time he saw Yu Qianqiu use his fist. The first time, he hit the grandson of sect leader Ang Guangceng. If his guess was right this time. Sigh. I hope not. Then, his guess was confirmed. Two De Luo sect disciples supported the unconscious person on a table, protecting him carefully. The person who just spoke said in a deep voice, "His name is Luo Xiaohan, the only son of our De Luo sect leader." Isn't that enough for you, Yu Qianqiu, to give face to De Luo sect? F***CKU, the only son of De Luo sect leader. My martial uncle is the sect leader of supporting Immortal Island, and my martial ancestor was the previous sect leader of supporting Immortal Island. My woman was forced to drink with your De Luo sect's disciple. I just reported my name, but you, the only son of the sect leader, still won't let go of my woman. F***CK. Who is giving face to supporting Immortal Island? Yu Qianqiu kept talking about supporting Immortal Island. In his opinion, he would be an idiot if he didn't use such a big name. Anyway, supporting Immortal Island didn't belong to him. No matter how big the trouble was, there would be someone stronger to deal with it. What was there to be afraid of? The De Luo sect disciples were speechless. Yu Qianqiu wanted to instigate the four major clans to fight with De Luo sect. Who knew that the troublemakers would come? Who is causing trouble in my Wu clan? Two old men came in from outside. Judging from their clothes, they were from the Wu clan. This shop was originally opened by the Wu clan. Once there was any disturbance, the news would be immediately reported back. Just as the two of them steadied themselves, a few more people came in from outside. Standing on Yu Qianqiu's side was the late-stage nascent Soul Realm manager of supporting Immortal Islands, Hat Island, shop, Wan Yuan. Behind him were two late-stage core formation disciples. Standing on the De Luo sect side was also the manager of this shop, Yi Haiping. There were also two people behind him. Everyone sized up the situation. Yi Haiping frowned. Clearly, his De Luo sect's people were at a disadvantage. After checking Luo Xiaohan's injuries, he heaved a sigh of relief. It wasn't fatal. Everyone asked what happened. Wu Liqing reported to the two old men. Naturally, the De Luo sect explained to Yi Haiping. Yu Qianqiu wasn't that polite. He pulled Wan Yuan back and addressed him as martial uncle. Then, he loudly reprimanded the De Luo sect's atrocities in front of everyone. He even emphasized that Luo Xiaohan forced his woman to drink with him. After knowing his identity, Luo Xiaohan still refused to let go of his woman. That was why he beat Luo Xiaohan up. As soon as he said this, Wu Lixue's face immediately turned scarlet. Now the entire cultivation world probably knew that she was Yu Qianqiu's woman. However, she wasn't an idiot. Things had gotten out of hand. Naturally, she knew that Yu Qianqiu was helping the Wu clan. Thus, she couldn't even say anything to defend herself. When the two elders questioned her, she even had to help smooth things over. How embarrassing. If she knew that something like this would happen, she wouldn't have come with her brothers. The two elders' complexion turned ashen. The De Luo sect was clearly bullying the Wu clan. Wan Yuan's expression was gloomy, but he was happy in his heart. Yu Qianshou's reputation was well-deserved. No wonder the sect master valued him. He had beaten up the Deluo sect master's only son in one move. He had truly made supporting Immortal Island proud. Furthermore, Wang Yuan's side was in the right and could explain everything. As for whether Wu Lixue was Yu Qianshou's woman, he didn't care. At least, she didn't deny it. After listening to his disciple's stammering report and hearing the other party's stern accusation, Yi Haiping's brows knitted together. It was obvious that Luo Xiaohan was the one who took liberties with Yu Qianshou's woman. However, he was too daring. He didn't take action when the other party reported supporting Immortal Island's name. He was truly arrogant and didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. It was fine if he was arrogant in other places, but why did he provoke supporting Immortal Island? Brother Wan, my Deluo sect was unreasonable. I apologize to you. Look at how Yu Qianshou beat up Luo Xiaohan. Why don't we put an end to this matter? If this matter is blown out of proportion, it might affect the harmony between both sides. Yi Haiping spoke helplessly. Chapter 188. Wan Yuan sneered with a sullen face. I don't want to hurt the harmony between the two sides. It seems that your Deluo sect doesn't put my Fuxian Island in your eyes. Today, the sect master even personally sent me a message to pay attention to Yu Qianshou's situation. I never thought that I would be bullied by your Deluo sect. Brother Yi, how do you want me to explain this to the sect leader? Could it be that you want me to hide it and not report it? I don't have that kind of guts. In my opinion, this matter should be handled by the sects of both sides. This matter has become so big that we can't hide it even if we want to. It's not something that you and I can decide. Ugh. Yi Haiping looked at the unconscious Luo Xiaohan with disgust. If it wasn't for this guy, he wouldn't have to be so submissive. He might even be implicated in this matter. He sighed and said, that's the only way. Yi Haiping. One of the Wu clan's two elders said, your Deluo sect is going too far. You're taking liberties with a disciple of my Wu clan in broad daylight. Do you really think my Wu clan is that easy to bully? Yi Haiping was completely speechless. What was this? Luo Xiaohan had offended two families at once, but he himself had become the focal point of the conflict. He repeatedly apologized to the duo with cupped hands and smiled bitterly. Elders, please don't be angry. I believe after reporting this matter to the sect, my great Luo sect will definitely give the Wu clan an explanation. Let's go. The Wu clan elder said angrily. Yu Qianshou bowed to Wan Yuan and said, disciple will return to the Wu clan to stay for the time being. I hope Martial Uncle can report what happened today to the sect and help me seek justice. I will naturally report this matter to the sect. Go ahead. Wan Yuan nodded. He didn't dare to be careless when facing this disciple that even the sect head was paying attention to. Fortunately, it was Yu Qianshou who made a move today. If he had suffered a loss, he would have lost the face of supporting Immortal Island even if he was in the right. At that time, he really didn't know how to explain it to the sect. Yu Qianshou bowed again and left with Wu Licheng and the others. The Daluo sect disciples also carried the injured and left dejectedly. When the spectators from the various sects saw that there was no more excitement to watch, they immediately went back to what they were doing. When the six of them returned to quiet guest house, Wu Huagan and Zhu Xuanxiu were waiting for them. This was something that could not be avoided. Parents' concern for their children was unquestionable. Wu Licheng immediately explained the matter in detail. Yu Qianshou didn't think much of it, but Wu Lixue's face was so red that she didn't dare to raise her head. Sigh. Some things that were destined could not escape. After learning of the exalted sect's actions, as furious as the couple was, the matter had already been handed over to their clan. It was no longer something they could make a decision on. However, Yu Qianshou said that Wu Lixue was his woman in front of everyone. He believed that with Yu Qianshou's fame, this matter would soon spread throughout the cultivation world. Now she knew that he had good intentions at that time, but how was she going to restore her daughter's reputation? In this era, a woman's reputation could not be tarnished so easily. Could it be that he had to tell the truth? Things had already come to this. If he really told the truth, not only would Fu Xian Island not agree, even the Wu clan would not agree. One had to know that he had already beaten Luo Xiaohan to such a state. If the exalted sect knew the truth, even if they didn't dare to seek revenge from Fu Xian Island, would they not dare to seek revenge from the Wu clan? However, if he didn't tell the truth, wouldn't his daughter's lifetime of happiness be in regret? Wu Huagan and Zhu Xuanqiu's expressions were uncertain. Yu Qianqiu stood there seriously for a while. He felt uncomfortable all over and looked around at the furnishings in the room. He didn't have a deep understanding of the concept of this era. To him, it was just a casual statement to find a reason to beat up that bastard. He didn't really do anything to Wu Lixue. After the matter was over, they would go their separate ways. Soon after, the couple brought Wu Licheng and Wu Lixue away. Yu Qianqiu immediately heaved a sigh of relief. He found a spacious chair and laid down on it leisurely. "Brother Yu, you've caused trouble." Bai Zizong smiled bitterly. Yu Qianqiu struggled to get up and sneered. "What trouble? Didn't I just beat up that Luo Xiaohan? Why would I be afraid of him?" Tan Fei and Jing Zuo looked at each other. The latter shook his head. "I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what you did to Wu Lixue." Yu Qianqiu was stunned. He scratched his head. "I didn't do anything to her. Didn't I almost kill her in the beginning? Isn't that a thing in the past?" This guy obviously didn't know himself. Did he really not know what was in his head? Tan Fei didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "You said Wu Lixue is your woman in front of everyone. Isn't that causing trouble?" "TSK. That's nothing. I was just looking for a good reason to beat up that bastard. Even if I beat him up with another reason, I would be in a lot of trouble without the support of my sect. It's enough for us to know these things. There's no need to say it out loud." Yu Qianqiu waved his hand casually. "I say, Yu Qianqiu, you've basically announced to the entire cultivation world that Lixue is your woman. How can a woman's reputation be used as a joke? How is Lixue going to live in the future?" Tan Fei tapped his finger on the coffee table beside him and said meaningfully. After hearing what he said, Yu Qianqiu's impression of this world emerged from the knots in his head. A woman's reputation and chastity were extremely important here. A woman's reputation being tarnished was enough to drive a woman to her death. Yu Qianqiu was dumbfounded. The Wu clan had the largest manor. It belonged to the patriarch and his family members. After retiring, it would be given to the next patriarch. Wu Licheng's grandfather, Wu Sihai, was the current patriarch of the Wu clan. In the main hall, a spirited old man looked at Wu Licheng and said, "You're saying that there's another mysterious force behind Yu Qianqiu other than supporting Immortal Island?" The old man who asked the question was Wu Sihai. At this moment, there were only him, Wu Huagan, and Wu Licheng in the hall. There was no one else. Women weren't allowed to participate in important matters in the Wu clan. "Yes, grandfather," Wu Licheng said, "Zizong and I saw with our own eyes that Yu Qianqiu summoned over 100 masked men in black. Even the weakest among them was stronger than me. An Quansung's first grandson and others were killed by Yu Qianqiu's men in black. Moreover, from the words of those men in black, they didn't put supporting Immortal Island in their eyes at all. I reckon that their strength is far beyond this." Wu Huagan was shocked. "There's such a force behind Yu Qianqiu. When did the cultivation world have such a force?" "That's not bad." Wu Sihai nodded. "I just received news that An Quansung's sect master, Lu Changqing, was killed." "What?" The father and son exclaimed at the same time. The Blood Demon Palace had spent so much effort to kill him, yet they had failed. How could he have been killed so suddenly? The richest man in Swallow City is surnamed Yu. Last night, there was a huge battle at the Yu residence. Lu Changqing was killed there. According to the residents who saw it, there were hundreds of men in black surrounding Lu Changqing. Lu Changqing used the white horsetail whisk and the green destiny sword, the two treasures of An Quansung. The men in black couldn't do anything to them. In the end, a white-clothed man appeared. Judging from the description of the nearby residents, this white-clothed man was most likely an expert at the late stage of transcending tribulation. As soon as this person appeared, he immediately killed Lu Zhangqing. Wu Sihai recalled the information he had received. This time, it wasn't hundreds of men in black, but hundreds of men in black. There was even a late-stage tribulation passing expert in white? Wu Liqing was shocked. Wu Sihai nodded. According to the people nearby, the richest man with the surname Yu has 2 sons. The eldest son's name is Yu Qianqiu. At first, we weren't sure if this Yu Qianqiu is the same Yu Qianqiu. Now that you mention it, there's no doubt it's the Yu Qianqiu who lives here. Wu Huagan was shocked. What kind of background does this Yu Qianqiu have? Why don't we ask his parents? Maybe we'll get some information. We can't find him. The entire Yu residence was burned to ashes. There's no trace of him. Wu Sihai shook his head and sighed. I can see that this person really wants to be friends with Liqing and the others. Otherwise, he wouldn't have let you know about this secret. Also, from what happened to Shui Er, we can see that. We'll help him keep this a secret for as long as we can. Father, what about Shui Er? I'm afraid the entire cultivation world has heard about it. Wu Huagan frowned. We know our own children well. Why should we care about what others think? In my opinion, if the 2 of them are really in love with each other, it doesn't matter if it turns out to be real. Wu Sihai suddenly turned around and stared at Wu Liqing. Maybe with the help of the power behind Yu Qianqiu, Liqing can smoothly become the next patriarch. Putting this aside, we still don't know how strong the power behind him is. In short, it's better to be friends and not enemies. Wu Huagan frowned. Father, you mean to matchmake Shui Er and Yu Qianqiu, and let Yu Qianqiu help Liqing? Wu Sihai waved his hand and interrupted. You misunderstand. Of course it's best. But I won't do such a thing with my granddaughter's happiness. The key is to see if the 2 of them get along. To be honest, I admire young people like Yu Qianqiu. Although he's a little impulsive, he's a man. If Shui Er can be with him, she won't suffer. Besides, I believe that if Liqing is sincere with him, he won't stand by if Liqing faces any difficulties in the future. Grandpa. There's something I forgot to tell you. Wu Liqing smiled bitterly. Yu Qianqiu used to be An Kuangsung's abandoned disciple. He once promised to marry a female disciple of An Kuangsung. Later on, this female disciple became Lu Zhenguang's Dao companion, and it was precisely because of this that Lu Zhenguang attracted a fatal disaster. That woman had already been snatched away by him. If Shui Er really gets together with him, won't she have to be a concubine? Wu Huagan was stunned. Snatch someone else's wife? Wu Sihai laughed. There's such a thing? Haha. This kid really is an extraordinary person. I didn't misjudge him. What a pity. I wonder if our Shui Er is lucky enough to have him. Both father and son's faces twitched. Wu Huagan said, Father, Xuanxiu will never agree to let Shui Er be someone else's concubine. What a woman. What does she know? Wu Sihai glared. Putting aside the fact that men have multiple wives. As long as Yu Qianqiu can give Shui Er a lifetime of happiness, it doesn't matter if he has 100 wives. At the same time, if a man only marries Shui Er but can't give her happiness, I'd rather Shui Er stay single for the rest of her life. It's not easy for a girl to meet a man who can make her happy. Both father and son were speechless. If Yu Qianqiu heard Wu Sihai's words, he'd hug his leg and cry. Bosom friend. I swear to the heavens, I'll treat Shui Er well. Unfortunately, he couldn't hear it. That night, Yu Qianqiu tossed and turned restlessly. He was deeply aware of his mistake. The next day, the grandest auction in the cultivation world was about to be held. Early in the morning, Wu Liqing led Wu Lixue to the quiet guest house. Originally, Wu Lixue was too embarrassed to see Yu Qianqiu again, but she didn't know that his grandfather, father, and brother had already joined hands to sell her out. Grandpa Wu glared. Yesterday, she fought for you. Today, you and your brother must accompany her well. Otherwise, don't blame Grandpa for getting angry. Our Wu family doesn't have ungrateful people. Just like that, Wu Liqing came with the mission of matchmaking his sister with Yu Qianqiu. They left Jingguozhai and headed towards Hat Island. Bai Zitsong and the other two noticed that Yu Qianqiu, Wu Liqing, and Wu Lixue were behaving strangely today. Wu Lixue! Yu Qianqiu suddenly shouted. They looked over in surprise, and Wu Lixue was even more stunned. Yu Qianqiu scratched his head. I'm sorry. I was too reckless yesterday and ruined your reputation. Wu Lixue's beautiful face blushed as she immediately understood what he was referring to. She bit her red lips and suddenly smiled sweetly. Yu Qianqiu, isn't your apology a little insincere? Yu Qianqiu smiled awkwardly. A little. Tell me then. As long as I can do it, I won't shirk my responsibility. Bai Zitsong and the other three turned their heads around and looked at whoever spoke. Wu Lixue rolled her eyes and said playfully, then buy the first item in today's auction and give it to me. I'll pretend that yesterday never happened. Sure. No problem. I'll buy it for you no matter how much it costs. Yu Qianqiu agreed. The guilt in his heart lessened. Damn it. I'm rich. It's best if I can solve my problems with money. Otherwise, I'll feel guilty for the rest of my life. He didn't know that after he agreed, Wu Lixue's eyes flashed with a hint of disappointment. Li Cheng. Do you know what the first item in today's auction is? Yu Qianqiu couldn't help but ask. After yesterday's incident, they became closer to each other. They even called each other by their names. Wu Liqing shook his head. I don't know. Only the customers and the person handling the auction know about it. Other than the elders and parents who have the right to ask, it's kept a secret from everyone else. But one thing is for sure. Only valuable items are auctioned in this kind of auction. Why? Did Qianqiu agree too early? Are you afraid that you don't have enough money? Bai Zitsong joked. The few of them laughed. When they arrived at Hat Island, Yu Qianqiu didn't expect the auction to be held underground. There was a huge space below. There were probably thousands of people. Everyone was covered in black from head to toe. Other than their eyes, they couldn't see anything. It was probably for the sake of secrecy. With the help of the Wu family, Yu Qianqiu and the others were arranged to sit at the front. They were also covered in black, and Wu Lixue sat beside her. The auction began. On the stage in front, two Wu clan's disciples carried out an object covered in black cloth. From the looks of it, it should be an oval object. The host of the auction was an elder of the Wu family. After the elder came up, he signaled the disciples to take off the black cloth on the auction item. What appeared in front of everyone was a black object the size of a winter melon. It looked like an egg, but they had never seen such a big egg before. Yu Qianqiu muttered to himself. Is this a dinosaur egg? Are there dinosaurs in this place? Damn it. Auctioning a dinosaur egg? Just when everyone was trying to figure out what it was, the black object suddenly turned bright red. Not long after, it darkened again. After a while, it glowed red again. The process repeated as if there was something breathing inside. Chapter 189. What is this? The audience was in an uproar as they had never seen such a treasure before. Yu Qianqiu turned around to look at Wu Lixue, and the latter just happened to turn around to look at him. Both of them were slightly startled when their eyes met. The former revealed a questioning look as though he was saying, Are you sure you want this item? Don't you want to exchange it for something you like? However, it seemed like Wu Lixue hadn't reached the realm of telepathy with him yet. Her charming face blushed as she turned around shyly. Fortunately, her entire face was covered, and she could sit at the side without anyone seeing through her shyness. Yu Qianqiu pouted indifferently. Since you like it, then I will buy it. The host of the auction was Wu clan's elder, Wu Tai. Wu Tai looked at clan head Wu Sihai, who was in the dark room at the side of the stage, and the latter nodded. Wu Tai turned around and swept his gaze below before speaking in a clear voice, "Everyone, the auction will still follow the old rules. The highest bidder wins. I won't say any more nonsense and will introduce the first item to everyone." Looking at the item that was flickering in red and black, Wu Tai shook his head and sighed. It is shameful to say this. For so many years, there hasn't been an item that our Wu clan couldn't appraise. Today, we have finally encountered one. Our Wu clan can't differentiate the authenticity of the first item, but I believe it is also a treasure. According to the seller's estimation, this item might be the egg of the divine bird, Vermilion Bird. Our Wu clan has flipped through the ancient records to find the legends. The divine bird Vermilion Bird's egg does have some similarities with this item, but we can't be certain. In view of this, after discussing with the seller, we have decided to make this the first item. If you are interested, why don't you buy it and incubate it? Who knows, you might really be able to hatch a divine bird Vermilion Bird. Once this statement was out, it instantly caused the audience to burst into laughter. What a joke, divine bird Vermilion Bird. That was something that only existed in legends. Who had seen it before? If it was true, why didn't the seller incubate such a divine item himself? Why did he want to auction it? Lian Yuqianshou also felt that this was a bit absurd. He looked at Wu Lixue, only to see a pair of large eyes curiously staring at the so-called Vermilion Bird egg. Yuqianshou was speechless. I will buy it. Everyone. Wu Tai waved his hand and said, the first item, Vermilion Bird egg, the starting price is 5,000 upper-grade spirit stones. Every increment must be no less than 1,000 upper-grade spirit stones. Those who are willing to buy, please bid, the highest bidder wins. The audience burst into laughter again. If it was really a Vermilion Bird egg, then selling it at 5,000 yuan was a bit too cheap. After everyone laughed, they looked around to see which idiot would bid for this thing. For a long time, no one made a bid. Even Bai Zitsong and the other three couldn't help but look at Yuqianshou. He didn't look like someone who would go back on his words. Yuqianshou sat quietly, unmoved. On the other hand, Wu Lixue was a little embarrassed. Could it be that he was afraid of being laughed at by buying this thing? However, she didn't think that everyone was covered up, so who would know who was who? Yuqianshou had his own plans. No one is bidding. Wu Tai looked around, shook his head and sighed. Wu clan holds a grand auction once every 5 years. I didn't expect it to be unsold today. Finished speaking, he waved his hand at the disciples on both sides, signaling them to bring the item down. Wait. I will buy it with 5,000 upper-grade spirit stones. It was a woman's voice, her tone was pretty good. Everyone looked over, someone was bidding at the corner of the front row. Many of them guessed that it was a young mistress from some sect who had too much money. At least it didn't go unsold. Wu Tai said excitedly, is there anyone else bidding? If not, this item will belong to this lady. Just when everyone was sneering in their hearts, Yuqianshou raised one hand and said, I will bid 6,000. There was another uproar. But no one knew that he was cursing in his heart. Damn it. I wanted to take advantage of this at the most crucial moment. Why did you come out to mess things up? The woman who made the bid earlier looked over and raised her hand. 7,000. 8,000. Yuqianshou shouted again. That woman raised her hand again without hesitation. 10,000. Just when Yuqianshou wanted to raise the price again, someone shouted, 15,000. It was a man's voice. Adding 5,000 in one go, Yuqianshou stopped bidding. Damn it. There's someone even more sinister than me. Just like everyone else, they all looked at the black-clothed man in the middle who acted as if nothing had happened. This time, no one laughed anymore. They all looked at the Vermilion Bird egg on the stage. Could it be that there was really someone who knew what it was? 16,000. That woman raised the price again. 20,000. That man also raised the price again. He was obviously more generous than that woman. The woman hesitated for a while and finally shouted, 20,000. Under everyone's gaze, the man raised his hand, 20,000. It seemed like he was determined to win. And that woman finally stopped. After waiting for a while, Wu Tai looked around and shouted, 20,000, is there anyone else bidding? 30,000. Yu Qianqiu raised his hand again. To someone who was determined to win, there was no need to be so stingy when raising the price. Who asked him to also be determined to win? Everyone originally thought that Yu Qianqiu had been scared off, but who knew that it would start again? This time, everyone knew that there was going to be a good show to watch. The two people who were determined to win were going to have some sparks. That man paused for a moment and raised his hand, 50,000. Yu Qianqiu said without hesitation, 100,000. That woman in the corner suddenly looked at him and knew that she was tricked by him. 11,000 increments, it turned out that he didn't even put it in his eyes. Wu Lixue, who was at the side, looked at him with her heart thumping. It turned out that he really wanted to buy it for her. After waiting for a moment, Wu Tai laughed heartily and said, it has already been raised to 100,000. Does this Mr. still want to raise it? Of course, he was happy. The Wu clan would take 20% of the transaction price of every item, and this 100,000 would be a profit of 20,000 for the Wu clan. How could he not be happy? And the Mr. he mentioned was naturally the man in the middle. The latter raised his hand and said, 150,000. The crowd was in an uproar as this price was already very high. Yu Qianqiu said indifferently, 300,000. The crowd instantly felt as though they were struck by lightning, and there was absolute silence. He doubled the price in an instant, and it was already 60 times the base price. That woman in the corner took a glance at him. Previously, she was still a little angry, but now, she had completely lost her temper. It wasn't that he was tricking her, but she simply didn't have the strength to accept the challenge. When Wu Sihai, who was in the dark room on the stage, heard the bid, he suddenly looked at Yu Qianqiu. One had to know that Yu Qianqiu's seat was arranged by the Wu clan in advance, and he naturally knew who was sitting there. Wu Lixue didn't even dare to raise her head. This man was fine when he didn't show his prowess, but once he did, he would be so domineering and awe-inspiring, and she was completely convinced. For her, he spent 300,000 high-grade spirit stones to buy an unknown item. She was truly perturbed and felt that her request was too excessive. Bai Zizong and the others looked at one another in dismay. They knew that Yu Qianqiu was rich, but they didn't expect him to be this rich. 300,000 high-grade spirit stones to buy an item as a gift for a woman. He was truly ruthless. They knew that it would be hard for them to do such a thing. Wu Liqing was now truly admiring his grandfather's foresight. If Shui really followed Yu Qianqiu, she definitely wouldn't feel bad. At the very least, she wouldn't run out of money. Chapter 190. It was the first time the crowd saw someone auction an item like this. The other party only bid 150,000, and he directly raised it to 300,000. Even if he was rich, he didn't have to do this. Actually, Yu Qianqiu didn't want to do this. The key was that he had to buy this broken thing. Looking at the other party's bidding, he was really rich and overbearing. If the two of them continued to compete, who knew how high the price would go? Therefore, he decided to be even more ruthless. As long as you're not afraid that I'll give up halfway, you can follow me and raise the price if you have the ability. Wu Tai was excited and shouted, it's already 300,000. Is there anyone else? Does that gentleman still want to raise the price? Everyone's heart was beating fast. If that person followed and raised the price, according to Yu Qianqiu's way of raising the price, it might double again. But if he raised the price and Yu Qianqiu didn't, then he would really suffer a big loss. It wasn't rare for there to be shills in the auction house. It was to raise the price of the item they were auctioning, and then suddenly stop bidding. The item that the buyer originally needed to pay 10,000 spirit stones would often be raised by several times. Looking at Yu Qianshou's bidding method, it really looked like shills. In fact, both of them looked like it. That person paused and shook his head, indicating that he didn't want to raise the price. The whole crowd heaved a sigh of relief. Yu Qianshou's worried heart also relaxed. Then, when he thought of paying 300,000 top-grade spirit stones, his heart ached. This unlucky girl, if you wanted something valuable, would be more comfortable paying money. But it just had to be this broken egg. I don't even know if it's an egg. If it's a glowing stone, I'll definitely vomit blood. But there's no other way. Who asked me to already agree to it? Sigh. The relationship that I built with great difficulty with the 4 major families can't be destroyed. I'll find a chance to earn it back. That's what Yu Qianshou thought. Good. Since no one is raising the price, then this vermilion bird egg is this gentleman's. Wu Tai announced loudly. He didn't expect that the first item to be auctioned would be sold at such a good price. Usually, the items in the auction would be the best, and the last item to be auctioned would be the best. On the stage, one of the Wu clansmen walked to Yu Qianshou's side and asked him if he still wanted to continue with the auction. If he still wanted to continue, Yu Qianshou could ask him to settle the money for the first round, and the rest of the auction would continue after he returned. Yu Qianshou indicated that he would continue to participate and stood up to follow him. The auction entered a short break. This seemed to be troublesome, but in fact, there was no other way. The cultivation world was not like the secular world. If a cultivator with a high cultivation deliberately made trouble and bid for everything, but in the end, didn't pay a single cent and floated away, who could stop him? Wouldn't the entire auction become a child's play? This kind of thing wasn't said randomly. It had really happened before, so there was such a rule. Everyone was used to it and could understand it. The Wu clansmen respectfully led him backstage. They had no choice but to be respectful. Those who could casually take out 300,000 high-grade spirit stones were big customers. After all, they were doing business. There were many people backstage, and even Wu Sihai came out from the dark room. Although the Wu clansman didn't wear black robes like him, Yu Qianshou didn't recognize him. Someone led him to a big funnel, and he knew that it was a magic tool for counting spirit stones. Yu Qianshou had seen it in the spirit stone mine in Angquansung before. He took out 300,000 high-grade spirit stones in one go, and if it was counted by the number of people, who knew how long it would take to count? An elder beside Wu Sihai walked over and pointed at the magic tool with a smile. "Mister, please pay." He meant for Yu Qianshou to pour the spirit stones directly into the funnel. Yu Qianshou frowned and said, "I don't have that many high-grade spirit stones." That elder was stunned and smiled awkwardly. "Mister, you aren't joking, right?" Wu Sihai suddenly said, "It's the same if you use medial-grade and low-grade spirit stones of the same value." That elder immediately reacted and nodded with a smile. "That's right. As long as it's spirit stones of the same value as 300,000 high-grade spirit stones, my humble auction house can exchange for it." "I don't have that many medial-grade and low-grade spirit stones either," Yu Qianshou said. He wasn't joking. Utopia provided for so many people, and he gave them a very high salary. The spirit stones accumulated back then might be more than 300,000 high-grade spirit stones, but if he took them out, how was he going to pay his subordinates in the future? Was he going to use supreme-grade spirit stones to pay them? What a joke. A group of Wu clansmen exchanged glances and quietly spread out, sealing off all the escape routes. They reckoned that they were here to cause trouble today. It was no wonder that the price was sky-high. They had never seen such an auction. That elder's expression twitched. He hadn't encountered such a thing in a long time. He said in a deep voice, "Mister, what exactly do you mean?" Wu Sihai spoke again. "It's fine if the total value of high-grade, medial-grade, and low-grade spirit stones is more than 300,000 high-grade spirit stones." That elder didn't say anything and stared at Yu Qianshou with a gloomy expression. Yu Qianshou nodded and said, "In that case, I can gather 300,000 high-grade spirit stones, but I still have a use for them. I can't give them to you." This time, even Wu Sihai's expression changed. Could it be that I misjudged? The surrounding Wu clansmen's hands were already on their sword hilts. They were ready to attack if something went wrong. Can I use supreme grade spirit stones to pay? Yu Qianqiu took out a purple spirit stone and asked. Everyone was dumbfounded. They all stared at the purple spirit stone in his hand. This was the legendary supreme grade spirit stone. Was it real or fake? Yu Qianqiu looked around and thought, this is going to be troublesome. Is he not going to accept supreme grade spirit stones? If it really doesn't work, I can only use Utopia's spirit stones to make up for it. He asked, doesn't your Wu clansman accept supreme grade spirit stones? Wu Sihai's throat kept moving up and down. He spoke with difficulty, Mister, can you let me appraise this supreme grade spirit stone first? If it is real, I can naturally use it to pay. Ha! You scared me. I thought you didn't accept supreme grade spirit stones. Don't worry. I can't take out any fake items. Here, feel free to inspect it. Yu Qianqiu smiled and said. Of course. I also believe that Mr. doesn't have any fake items. Wu Sihai spoke like this, but he still took the purple spirit stone. Once the spirit stone was in his hand, before he even inspected it, he could already feel the faint spirit qi rippling on it. Wu Sihai held the spirit stone and rubbed it. The enchanting purple was crystal clear. It was the same size as other spirit stones. Observing it from the side, it was definitely formed naturally. He used both palms to put the purple stone in the center of his palm, closed his eyes, and injected a wisp of divine sense. Suddenly, his body trembled. He never thought that there would be such a vast spirit qi in this small spirit stone. How could a high-grade spirit stone compare to it? It was really incredible. Wu Sihai retracted his divine sense and opened his eyes. He shouted in surprise, this is really a good thing. I didn't expect to see a supreme-grade spirit stone in my lifetime. How lucky. The surrounding people all stared at the purple stone intently. Their faces were full of amazement. With such an evaluation from him, there was no doubt that it was a real supreme-grade spirit stone. This was a rare good thing. Today was really an eye-opener. Wu Sihai rubbed it for a while and was still amazed. Then, he handed the supreme-grade spirit stone to the elder and said, you take it and inspect it too. See if I made a mistake. Mistake my A*S. I personally dug a lot of it back then. How can it be fake? Yu Qianqiu looked at the reaction of these people with a smile and didn't say anything. No, what you said is true. Naturally, it can't be fake. The elder said politely. However, he still couldn't help but take the spirit stone and admire it. After confirming that there was no mistake, he held it with both hands and handed it back. Wu Sihai waved his hand and said, this kind of opportunity is rare. Let the disciples here see it and broaden their horizons. Then, the purple spirit stone began to circulate in the hands of the Wu family's disciples. Wu Sihai smiled at Yu Qianqiu and said, I've let Mr. see a joke. It's because my Wu family relies on eyesight. I really don't want to miss this opportunity to broaden my horizons. I understand. Yu Qianqiu nodded and smiled, then can I pay with the supreme grade spirit stone? Of course. Wu Sihai said happily. Then, he frowned and said, there is something that this old man wants to clarify with Mr. This supreme grade spirit stone is not in circulation in the market now. The specific valuation is also hard to say. However, according to the old legend, a supreme grade spirit stone can be exchanged for 10,000 high grade spirit stones. Therefore, Mr. needs to take out 30 supreme grade spirit stones for 300,000 high grade spirit stones. Of course, this old man also believes that the value of a supreme grade spirit stone is definitely more than 10,000 high grade spirit stones. However, I'm afraid the seller will not agree. Please forgive me, Mr. Chapter 191. Understood. Yu Qianzhou walked to a table, took out 2 purple spirit stones and put them on the table. He turned around and smiled, including that one. There are 30 spirit stones in total. You guys check it. The elder quickly walked over and smoothed out the small pile of sparkling purple spirit stones. After checking, he said with surprise, "Not bad, not a single one is missing." Wu Sihai nodded and smiled at Yu Qianzhou. "Mr. is willing to pay such a high price. You must have confirmed that this is a vermilion bird's egg. My Wu family relies on eyesight. This old man's eyesight is poor, so I would like to ask Mr. to teach me a thing or two on how to identify this item. I wonder if Mr. can enlighten me? Is this really a vermilion bird's egg? You've asked the wrong person for me to teach you a thing or two. Who the hell knows what this is? I just promised a friend that I would give the first item of the day to her." Yu Qianzhou's expression, which was hidden under the black cloth, was also twitching. This gift was enough to make his heart ache. Hearing this, everyone was speechless. Wu Sihai squeezed out a smile and said, "Mr. is really generous. By the way, Mr., do you want to take this item now or after the auction is over? Leave it here first. Let me see if there are any other good items later," Yu Qianzhou said. Wu Sihai waved his hand, and a disciple handed over a plate with the word 1 written on it. Yu Qianzhou took the plate without asking anything. He had heard this rule from Wu Liqing a long time ago. After paying for the item that was not yet claimed could be handed over to the auction house for safekeeping. At the same time, the auction house would hand over a plate that was arranged according to the item's serial number to the buyer. The buyer could not only claim the item after the auction, but also raise the plate to bid during the auction. Yu Qianzhou bid for item number 1, so the plate was 1. "You two, escort Mr. back to the auction house and tell Elder Wu Tai to continue the auction," Wu Sihai said to the 2 disciples. "Thank you," Yu Qianzhou said courteously, and followed the 2 disciples who had been leading the way respectfully back to Wu Lishue's side. The other people present also realized that something was wrong. When this person entered, he was led by a disciple. He stayed for a long time, but when he came out, he was led by 2 disciples. Looking at the expressions of the 2 disciples, they seemed to be abnormally respectful. Could it be that something happened in between? Everyone was trying to figure out Yu Qianzhou's identity. Yu Qianzhou sat there and thought about the old man just now. The smile under the black cloth was a little wider. He chuckled in his heart. To be able to make the Wu clan's elders so respectful, if you aren't the Wu clan's patriarch, Wu Sihai, who else could it be? I don't believe you don't know who I am. I hope that the best spirit stones I've given you for the first time can make you understand some principles. Don't waste my effort. He really took out 300,000 high-grade spirit stones. Bai Zizong and the rest looked at him again and again. Ever since they got to know him, they realized that he was getting more and more generous. But sometimes, he was very stingy. He would take advantage of the slightest things. It could be seen from the few times he tried to freeload off Yan Zhuixing. Wu Lishue's heart was racing. It was the first time in her life that someone gave her such an expensive gift. She didn't even dare to look at him now. Wu Sihai, who was backstage, looked at the sparkling purple stones on the table and fell into deep thought. This kind of extinct item was actually used as money today. What exactly was this Yu Qianzhou's background? From his tone, it seemed like he didn't care about these supreme-grade spirit stones at all. This meant that he had more than just these supreme-grade spirit stones. Li Qing seemed to have mentioned that those black-clothed men didn't even put Fuxian Island in their eyes. Their background was deep. It seemed like there were still unknown and powerful forces in this world. Elder Wu Lei. Wu Sihai came back to his senses and shouted. The one who shouted was the elder from before. Clan head. Wu Lei came over. Wu Sihai pointed at the purple spirit stones on the table and said, "Our Wu clan will keep these supreme-grade spirit stones and store them in the storehouse. 300,000 high-grade spirit stones, after deducting the commission, prepare it for the seller." Wu Lei took a glance at the purple spirit stones on the table and cupped his hands with delight. Clan head is wise. It should be so. I will go and prepare it now. As he spoke, he swept the items on the table into the storage bag. 2 clansmen who were beaming with joy followed. They were also members of the Wu clan, and they were naturally happy that the Wu clan was able to obtain benefits. On the stage, 2 Wu clan's clansmen walked out. One of them was holding a tray while the other took out 2 golden bracelets to show to everyone. Yu Qianqiu felt that this item was rather familiar. The second auction item is a mid-grade peak-grade defensive artifact, a pair of Vajra barriers. There are a total of 2 of them. The starting price is 20,000 high-grade spirit stones, and the highest bidder will win it. The minimum increment must not be less than 1,000 high-grade spirit stones. Everyone, please bid. Wu Tai announced happily. Today's auction had a good start, and he was in a rather good mood. So it was the Vajra bracelets. No wonder it looked familiar, Yu Qianqiu muttered to himself. 20,000, someone had already started to bid. 21,000, 22,000. 23,000, subsequently, there were people who kept on bidding. It was obvious that this item was much more attractive and practical than that bullish *T, vermilion bird egg, in everyone's eyes. It was also much more practical. Furthermore, those who were able to participate in the auction and bid were mostly the representatives of the righteous and evil sections. There were also some hidden tycoons in the cultivation world. They were all wealthy people, and as long as they felt that something was worth making a move, they wouldn't be stingy. Every time someone called out a price, Yu Qianqiu couldn't help but turn his head to look. Such a grand auction would only be held once every 5 years, and it would gather all the treasures that certain sellers had collected over the years. He believed that the supporting Immortal Island would definitely send someone over, but he didn't know who it was. Also, the 4 major clans would definitely send someone over. When they saw that Yu Qianqiu was constantly looking around, they didn't know what he was trying to do. When the price reached 30,000, Yu Qianqiu suddenly raised the paddle in his hand and shouted, 60,000. The few of them were startled and wanted to ask, "Boss, what are you doing?" The entire crowd was in an uproar. This fellow was going crazy again. Wu Tai's eyes lit up as he waved his hand and shouted, "Earlier on, the owner of auction item number 1 bid 60,000. Number 1 bid 60,000. Anyone else?" Wu Tai simply loved this fellow to death. If there were a few more buyers like him, the Wu clan would definitely make a fortune. 60,000, 62,000. 63,000, there were still people who continued to raise the price. Such a defensive artifact was an item that could save one's life during a crucial moment. Furthermore, there were 2 of them, and it meant that it could save one's life twice. Such a price was still acceptable. But after Yu Qianqiu interfered, the rising and falling bids instantly decreased by half. Some of them were already cursing in their hearts as they had never seen anyone bidding like this. This fellow was either a lunatic or someone from the Wu clan. 70,000. When the price reached 70,000, everyone looked at Yu Qianqiu, who didn't make another sound after shouting. They didn't know if this lunatic was going to flip out again. As expected, Yu Qianqiu didn't disappoint everyone as he raised the paddle in his hand and said, 140,000. Damn it. If you have the capability, then bid for all the items today. There were already people who couldn't help but curse. Wu Tai didn't care about this and shouted happily, 140,000. Number 1 buyer has already bid 140,000. Are there any more bids? Everyone pondered in their hearts and shook their heads silently. This pair of Vajra bracelets might be a life-saving item, but it was only a middle-grade artifact. If they were to encounter an expert who was at the middle stage of the Tribulation Transcendence realm and above, it wouldn't be able to withstand a single blow. The price of 100,000 high-grade spirit stones was already a sky-high price. With such a price and some face, it was entirely possible to request a blacksmith expert to refine a pair of bracelets. It wouldn't be wise to continue bidding. I bid 150,000. Everyone was shocked as there was still someone else bidding. They turned to look and saw that it was the person who had just shouted angrily. Everyone then looked at Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu was resting with his eyes closed, and there was no sound. This gentleman has already bid 150,000. Are there any more bids? Wu Tai looked around and smiled. Seeing that there was no response, he asked Yu Qianqiu, "Number 1 buyer, do you still want to bid?" "Damn it. Do you really think I'm a fool? Although I'm not that good at blacksmithing, at least I know the ropes. Can't I just casually shout for fun? Otherwise, it'll be so boring sitting here." Yu Qianqiu sneered in his heart. "Who asked you to scold me?" He opened his eyes and shook his head at Wu Tai, indicating that he didn't want it anymore. Wow. He doesn't want it anymore? Wow. No way. The crowd was boiling. Finally, someone was scammed. Chapter 192. The person who scolded him stood up and froze on the spot. He would be scolded to death by the sect if he paid 150,000 high-grade spirit stones for a pair of King Kong bracelets. Now that he thought about it, it was because everyone was silent and he couldn't stand that person's arrogance. He wanted to make that person pay more. Wasn't he rich? Who knew that he would stop after 2 rounds of bidding? Wasn't this a scam? Everyone looked at him with pity. He also looked around, hoping that someone else would bid a higher price. Even if it was 1,000 high-grade spirit stones, it would be enough. Unfortunately, no one took action to sympathize with him. In the end, his pleading gaze fell on Yu Qianqiu. The latter turned his head to look at him, sneered, and turned his head back. Bai Zizong and the others were speechless. This was too immoral. If people knew who you were, they would fight you to the death. Looking at Yu Qianqiu, the few of them looked at the person standing there with deep sympathy. No one else wants to bid? Wu Tai looked at Yu Qianqiu with regret. However, it was not easy for a pair of King Kong bracelets to be sold at such a price. He happily said, "A pair of King Kong bracelets, a top-notch mid-grade defense artifact. 150,000 high-grade spirit stones belongs to this gentleman." Clap clap. Yu Qianqiu clapped subconsciously because his mind was filled with thoughts from his past life. Everyone was affected by the atmosphere and clapped together. Although they didn't know what it meant, they felt that they couldn't vent their emotions if they didn't clap. Finally, someone was scammed. Clapping was a good way to express one's feelings. Clap clap. The applause was warm. No one knew if it was to congratulate that guy for winning the bid or to mock him. Unfortunately, no one could see the exciting expression on that person's face. With so many people gathered, it was inevitable that there would be some people cheering. The applause was really overwhelming. However, the one who applauded the most sincerely was Wu Tai on the stage. The happiest person at this moment, other than the seller, was him. The Wu family had earned a fortune again. Wu Lixue widened her eyes and looked curiously at Yu Qianqiu, who was applauding. Then, she looked around. She didn't understand how such a small action could have such a big impact. So many people in black suits couldn't possibly know him, right? Why were they cheering in front of him? This silly girl didn't know that some things did not require words. Everyone cared about feelings. Since it felt good, everyone naturally followed suit. Besides, they wouldn't lose anything by clapping, and they weren't the ones paying. Yu Qianqiu wanted to whistle, but it was really inconvenient with the black cloth covering his mouth. However, he didn't expect that a casual slap would cause such a huge reaction. It could be seen how boring the life of the people in this era was. A Wu clan's disciple walked to that person's side and respectfully invited him to the backstage to settle the bill. That person suddenly roared, "I'm not going." That person must be the Wu clan sponsor for this auction. Which of the people who were speaking here didn't use a fake voice? Naturally, they were afraid that someone would be tempted to betray them after seeing the money. However, this fellow actually reverted back to his original appearance in a moment of anger. Many people immediately guessed his origin. That Wu clan's disciple was startled and turned around to look at Wu Tai, who was hosting the auction. Wu Tai's expression immediately turned dark and said, "This mister, please be careful with your words. Anyone can do this auction, and my Wu clan's auction house is able to stand out in the cultivation world because of our reputation. I, Wu Tai, swear to the heavens that if this number one buyer is my Wu clan's agent, I, Wu Tai, will die a horrible death. Since I have said all that, I will have to ask this mister to come to the backstage to settle the bill. If you are really short of money, my Wu clan won't force you. However, according to the rules, you have to remove your outerwear and let everyone see your true appearance. After that, my Wu clan will naturally arrange for this pair of Vajra bracelets to continue the auction." Wu Tai's tone had traces of chilling intent towards the end. Just as he finished speaking, a few people flashed out from the backstage and leaped to that person's side. They were prepared to forcefully remove that person's outerwear at any moment. In fact, many people were suspecting that the number one buyer was the Wu clan's agent. Now that they saw Wu Tai swearing, their doubts were instantly gone. They all looked at that person and sneered in their hearts. Was this auction a place where one could act impulsively? If he really didn't settle the bill, once his appearance was revealed, the entire sect would be humiliated. If he had the money, he might as well settle the bill straightforwardly. A few people immediately stood beside that person and were constantly on guard against the Wu clan's members. With a single glance, it was obvious that the Wu clan's members were from the same sect as that person. It was extremely rare for someone to come to such an auction alone. Meanwhile, that person was trembling with anger, but there was no other choice. The situation was stronger than the person. Who was going to use force? The few of them couldn't defeat the Wu clan, and this was the Wu clan's territory after all. How could there be no experts in such a grand auction? There might be a late-stage tribulation transcendence expert somewhere. Furthermore, it was because he was impulsive and was unreasonable first. Ultimately, he raised his hand to stop the few people beside him and went backstage under the coercion of the Wu clan's members. When he came out, he had the number 2 auction token in his hand. It seemed like he still had the money to settle the bill. However, it made sense. Those who were able to participate in this auction were all prepared to pick treasures that they fancied. This was a place to compete in money. If one didn't bring a few $100,000, how could they buy a treasure? It was just a matter of whether the money in the storage bag was their own or the sect's. A small interlude passed just like that, and the auction continued. A Wu clan's member carried a small leather bag out. Everyone was very confused. What kind of treasure was this? It was actually stored in a leather bag? The Wu clan's member opened the bag in front of the stage and reached in with his hand. He grabbed a handful of things and loosened his fist slightly. Dazzling yellow sand fell from his palm into the bag. Immediately, someone gasped and cried out involuntarily, "Mystic gold sand." Wu Tai clapped and laughed, "Not bad. It is mystic gold sand." It seems like those who are able to participate in this auction are all experts. I believe everyone knows that mystic gold sand is an essential ingredient in refining magic treasures. Even if a little bit of mystic gold sand is mixed in with normal mystic iron, the flying sword refined may not be comparable to a magic treasure, but it is still a top-notch high-grade magic treasure. This bag has a total of 20 kilograms of mystic gold sand. This is also the first time I have seen so much mystic gold sand. I believe that among all of you, there aren't many who have seen so much mystic gold sand at once, right? This small bag has 20 kilograms, are you sure? Someone was suspicious, but he immediately waved his hand apologetically at the crowd. He immediately understood that mystic gold sand might look light, but it was a very heavy item. This small bag was probably no less than 20 kilograms. Moreover, the Wu clan auction house's reputation for so many years was not just for show. Naturally, it couldn't be faked. Many people who were originally leaning on their chairs straightened their bodies when they heard that there was 20 kilograms of mystic gold sand. These people were probably the true representatives of the big sections. The previous 2 items clearly couldn't move them, but now they were really a little interested. One had to know that every 50 grams of mystic gold sand, mixed in with mystic iron, could be refined into a high-grade magic treasure flying sword. This 20 kilograms could be refined into 200 swords. For a big sect, it was enough to increase the strength of 200 disciples by quite a bit. This was quite attractive. Yu Qianqiu's eyes also lit up. Ever since the last battle at the Yu residence, the 100 flying swords were shattered into pieces. It was simply a nightmare for him. If it wasn't for Bai Suzhen and the King Kong bracelet, he might have already said goodbye to this world. It was also because he had personally witnessed the 2 failures of the King Kong bracelet that he lost interest in the last round of the auction. After bidding twice, he didn't bid anymore. Spending money on something that wasn't safe wasn't worth it. The first time was naturally when he killed a disciple of the cultivation pavilion. The second time, the King Kong bracelet was simply destroyed. If he had these 20 kilograms of mystic gold sand, things would naturally be different. He was also a person who knew a bit about refining. If he encountered a situation like the last time, with 100 high-grade magic treasure flying swords in his hands, no matter how bad it was, he wouldn't be able to shatter them all. At least it would give him a chance to save his life. Moreover, with these high-grade magic treasure flying swords, the power of the Guiyuan sword technique would be greatly increased. Good stuff. I just need it. Yu Qianqiu glanced at the disinterested Wu Lixue and smiled as he handed over the sign in his hand. He said softly, "I'll bid, you help me raise the sign." Wu Lixue obediently took the sign and nodded. She thought raising the sign would be easy, but she didn't know how much pressure she would have to face. This was not a game that a small amount of money could afford to play. Bai Zizong and the others rolled their eyes. This girl shouldn't be like this. We've known each other since we were young and we've never seen her so obedient before. Today, she met someone she's only known for 2 days and she's already so obedient. What a sin. Wu Tai saw the restless reactions of the people below. He smiled slightly. If the big shots of the righteous and demon sects didn't make a move, then this auction would be very boring. He pointed at the mystic gold sand and said loudly, 20 kilograms of mystic gold sand, the starting price is 500,000 high-grade spiritual stones. The highest bidder wins. The minimum bid must be no less than 10,000 high-grade spiritual stones. Please bid. Chapter 193. 20 kilograms of mystic gold sand for 500,000 high-grade spirit stones? There was a brief silence below the stage, and everyone started to calculate in their hearts. 20 kilograms of mystic gold sand could be used to refine 200 high-grade flying swords. Of course, this was under the condition that all of them were successful. But basically, there was not much of a problem. They just needed to mix in the black iron and refine it, not to refine a magic weapon. The market price of a high-grade flying sword was about 3,000 high-grade spirit stones. 200 of them were worth 600,000 high-grade spirit stones. Excluding the price of the black iron and other materials, this starting price of 500,000 was indeed a bit expensive. But in terms of the quantity, it was completely worth it. Moreover, compared to the improvement of the strength of 200 disciples, it was very promising. 500,000. Yu Qianqiu waited for a long time. Seeing that these guys did not respond, he had to test the waters first. Wu Lixue raised the sign in her hand. Before she raised it, she did not even look at Yu Qianqiu and smiled foolishly. Although that face was blocked, Yu Qianqiu could still see from her eyes that she was smiling foolishly, showing off a bit. Wu Sihai, who was in the dark room, was slightly startled. He did not expect Yu Qianqiu to call the price first. When he looked outside, he suddenly did not know whether to laugh or cry. Yu Qianqiu slumped lazily on the chair. Wu Lixue, who was beside him, raised the sign high. Although he could not see her expression, he knew this granddaughter too well. Looking at her movements, he knew that she must be very proud at this time. There was a solution. He was afraid that this girl was a bit interested in Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu turned his head to both sides. Seeing that no one responded, he shouted towards the stage. Since no one responded, Elder Wu, what are you waiting for? You should announce that this mystic gold sand is mine, right? Wu Lixue put down the sign and nodded heavily. Wu Tai smiled awkwardly at him. You wish. How could no one want this thing? He said in a clear voice, is there anyone else to bid? The number one buyer has already bid 500,000. After shouting once, there was still no response from below. Wu Tai's expression suddenly twitched a little. Could it be that no one responded? Yu Qianqiu stood up, turned around, and looked around. Those who had wanted to raise the price didn't dare to speak after being stared at like that. Yu Qianqiu looked around in confusion. Strange, no one is bidding for this item? That's impossible, right? Buyer number 1 has bid 500,000 upper spiritual stones. Are there any other bids? Wu Tai shouted again. There was an indescribable expression on his face. In short, he was very embarrassed. He had hosted an auction for so many years, but this was the first time he had encountered such a situation. Yu Qianqiu slowly turned around, stared at Wu Tai on the stage, and said in a solemn voice, Elder Wu, you can announce the results already, right? Wu Tai smiled apologetically at him and shouted for the third time, is there anyone else who wants to increase the price? Buyer number 1 has already bid 500,000 high-grade spiritual stones. If you want to increase the price, please be quick. According to the rules, he was allowed to shout 3 times for a single bidding result. However, it was useless to shout. There were a few who clearly wanted to bid, but they actually leaned back on their chairs and pretended that they didn't hear anything. After shouting 3 times, there was actually no response. If he waited any longer, he would be violating the rules. Wu Tai's voice trembled as he announced, 20 kilograms of mystic gold sand. Buyer number 1 has obtained it with the base price of 500,000 high-grade spiritual stones. The audience was in absolute silence. Many people were looking around and didn't know what was going on. In the dark room, Wu Sihai's expression was also twitching. This was the first time he encountered such a situation, and it was as though he had seen a ghost. Bai Zitsong and the others were even more flabbergasted. How could such a thing happen? Right now, there was only one person who felt the most uncomfortable. After watching the entire auction, he was trembling in anger in a secret room behind everyone. He was the owner of the 20 kilograms of mystic gold sand, and he didn't expect such a thing to happen. He let out a sorrowful sigh. If he knew this would happen, he would have followed the Wu clan's pricing and set it at 400,000 high-grade spiritual stones. If he wasn't careful, the price might have been raised to more than 500,000. However, he was too greedy and insisted on setting it at 500,000 high-grade spiritual stones. In the end, he shot himself in the foot. Wu Lixue, who was addicted to the auction for the first time, was extremely excited. She didn't think that she would be able to win the bid in one go and didn't waste a single spirit stone from Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu took a glance at her and thought, strange. I encountered an item that I sincerely bid for, but no one is bidding? Could this girl really be my lucky star? Before he could think any further, a Wu clan's disciple had already invited him to the backstage. After he left, almost everyone was pondering what was going on and couldn't figure it out. Some people were even thinking, could everyone be thinking the same thing as me? In fact, there were plenty of people who wanted to bid for this round, especially the righteous and evil sections. Just as they were considering, Yu Qianqiu suddenly called out a price. When those people saw that it was this lunatic again, they couldn't help but ponder deeply. It seemed like this fellow wanted to participate in every round. It was obvious that he was a fellow with deep financial resources. Otherwise, who would dare to play like him? As long as this guy opened his mouth, if he guessed correctly, he would either fight to the end and win in one go, or he would raise the price so high that it would be hard for him to swallow. The previous 2 rounds were a lesson to be learned from. After thinking about it carefully, this mystic gold sand's base price was also very high. If one wanted to refine a high-grade flying sword, instead of spending 500,000 high-grade spirit stones, one might as well add another 100,000 and slowly purchase it in the cultivation world. It shouldn't be a problem to purchase one with 3,000 high-grade spirit stones, and they could even get 200 of them. Why was there a need to bid without any confidence? Even if one was able to purchase it and refine it into a magic artifact, putting aside the need to have a cultivator who could refine the magic artifact, even if there was, who could guarantee that all the refinement would be successful? Refining a magic artifact was different from a magic artifact. With the current refinement standard of the cultivation world, the failure rate wouldn't be low. However, this wasn't the most important point. The key point was, would this madman let you bid for it so smoothly? What's more, in the third round, there was already 10 kilograms of mystic gold sand. Presumably, the things later on would be even more incredible. If you spent a lot of money on this madman and encountered something you wanted later on, you could only stare helplessly. You couldn't possibly stop the auction and wait for you to go back to the sect to get your spirit stones. Some of the more powerful ones were still preparing to bid. However, at this time, they suddenly saw Yu Qianqiu standing up and sweeping his gaze back and forth. After a careful look, these people who wanted to bid were all shocked. Who was this person? They actually couldn't see through his cultivation. Among them, there were a few people whose cultivation had already reached the middle stage of crossing tribulation. After they saw clearly, they were even more shocked. Even they couldn't see through his cultivation. There was actually a cultivator in the late stage of crossing tribulation who came to join in the fun. When this person came out from the backstage during the first round, the Wu clan actually sent 2 disciples to send him off. Furthermore, they even sat in the first row. The Wu clan must have known that this person's identity was extraordinary, which was why they did this. In addition to the previous considerations, they felt that there was really no need to compete with this person at this time. If they angered this person, who could guarantee that he wouldn't be able to find out who was going against him in the future? Would he look for trouble with them? It wouldn't be too late to compete when there was a really good item. At least it would be worth it. As for the other small sects, when they saw that the number 1 buyer actually wanted to buy the mystic gold sand at the base price, they indeed wanted to join in. Even if they couldn't buy it, they would feel comfortable raising the price. However, when they thought about how they were short of money and how this guy didn't act according to common sense, what if they called out a price and the other party gave it to them? What should they do? Were they really going to let the Wu clan take off their clothes and show their faces in front of everyone? A lot of coincidences happened at the same time. In addition, Yu Qianqiu was filled with strangeness. As a result, no matter how hard they thought, they couldn't figure out why there was actually a situation where the mystic gold sand was bought at the base price. In the end, when the announcement was made, there were indeed people who regretted it. If they had known earlier, they would have just casually added a point to try. It would be too vexing to let someone buy it just like that. But who knew that everyone wouldn't bid for it? Chapter 194. Congratulations to Mr. for purchasing the mystic gold sand at the base price. Wu Sihai walked out and congratulated Yu Qianqiu, who was settling the bill. This is truly a joyous occasion. I was originally prepared to take out at least 3 million, but who knew that no one followed the price? This is truly strange. Sigh. I really can't figure it out. Yu Qianqiu shook his head and sighed. 3 million? Wu Sihai smiled awkwardly. His Wu clan had lost 500,000 high-grade spirit stones for nothing because of this disturbance, and anyone would feel heartache. The Wu clan's descendants at the side were truly speechless. They really couldn't figure out how such a thing could happen. Logically speaking, with this troublemaker around, the price should be even higher. This really shouldn't be the case. Yu Qianqiu nimbly took out 50 pieces of supreme-grade spirit stones, which instantly dazzled everyone for a moment. After he returned, Martial Thunder held the pile of supreme-grade spirit stones and said with a bitter smile, "These originally belonged to us, but we can only take 10 pieces now. What happened to those people outside? I really can't figure it out." Sigh. Wu Sihai sighed and said, keep all the supreme-grade spirit stones. Prepare 400,000 high-grade spirit stones for the seller. The crowd watched as buyer number 1 staggered back. They all sighed in their hearts. This madman had picked up a bargain. Wu Tai, who was on the stage, couldn't help but take a few more glances at Yu Qianqiu. With a wave of his hand, the 4th auction item appeared. A Wu clan's descendant came out with a wooden tray that was covered with a red cloth. The middle of the tray was raised, and it was unknown what was covered. Another Wu clan's descendant reached out and opened it. It turned out to be a jade bottle that was as round as a child's fist and as tall as half a chopstick. There was a faint green color inside. Wu Tai regained his smile and said, the contents of this bottle should be a little interesting to everyone. There is about a cup of wood spirit fluid. Wood spirit fluid? This time, many people exclaimed. Many of the elders who were leaning on their chairs immediately sat up straight, and their eyes were filled with splendor. When Yu Qianqiu heard the commotion, he turned around to take a look. Could this be another treasure? Wu Tai introduced, I'm sure everyone knows that this wood spirit liquid is the essence of a spirit tree with a lifespan of 10,000 years. A tree that has gained spirituality cannot become a spirit after cultivating for 10,000 years. If it continues to cultivate, it will definitely give back the essence of the world. When the sun rises and the moon sets, it will spit out 10 drops of wood spirit liquid every day. After a year, the essence will be spat out and the tree will wither and die. Although the spirit tree is dead, the wood spirit liquid it spits out has a miraculous effect. Just a drop of it can help the spirit grass we grow in the cultivation world increase its growth rate by 100 times. It is truly miraculous. If any sect had any top-grade spirit grass, they would definitely know that this kind of spirit grass grew very slowly. Some needed a few years to mature, and some even needed decades or centuries before they bloomed and bore fruit. Even if they produced seeds, they would have to wait for many years. With this wood spirit liquid, a few 100 years old spirit grass could bloom and bear fruit in a day with just a few drops. Wu Tai observed everyone's reaction and smiled, all right, I won't say much more. The starting price of this item was originally 1 million upper-grade spirit stones, but due to the influence of the previous auction item, the seller specially came to our auction house and lowered the starting price to 800,000. The starting price of wood spirit liquid is 800,000 upper-grade spirit stones, and the highest bidder wins. The minimum bid cannot be lower than 50,000 upper-grade spirit stones. Please bid. Damn it. After talking for so long, I thought it was some kind of treasure. Isn't this thing the same effect as the purple chaos in Utopia? What use do I have for this damn thing? I can have as much purple chaos as I want, and I can use as much as I want. Furthermore, the starting price is 800,000. Giving it to me for free, I'll think it's a burden. Yu Qianqiu muttered to himself. He moved his body, and Wu Lishue's eyes instantly lit up. She tightly held on to the token in her hand, and as long as he shouted, she would immediately show it to everyone. She was a little addicted to playing, but Yu Qianqiu moved his body to lie down more comfortably. Wu Lishue looked at him anxiously and was just short of pulling his ear and telling him, hey. Don't fall asleep, this is a good item. The scene was surprisingly quiet, and even the sound of a pin dropping on the ground could be heard. Everyone's eyes were looking at buyer number 1 as they didn't know what kind of trick he was going to play. After waiting for a long time without any reaction, Wu Tai was a little anxious on the stage. He smiled embarrassedly and said, for such a good item to appear here, it is truly a fated opportunity that can only be encountered and not sought for. Could it be that no one wants such a treasure? Wu Tai was really a little afraid. In the previous round, an auction item was bought at the starting price, and this was something that had never happened in the Wu clan's grand auction that was held once every 5 years. Could it be that there was going to be an unsold item this time? This was too inconceivable, right? One had to know that the Wu clan had a huge business and a huge population. A single year's expenses were quite a lot, and the auction that was held once every 5 years was the time to earn a lot of money. If this carried on, the entire Wu clan would have no choice but to live off their capital. Putting aside this matter, such a matter was enough to strike the Wu clan's reputation, and they would definitely become the laughingstock of the cultivation world. Wu Tai took a deep breath, and he had made up his mind to never allow an unsold item to appear. As long as no one said anything, he wouldn't say anything either. Withdrawing the auction item was something that couldn't be done no matter what. Wu Liqing also couldn't sit still as this was related to his clan. When he saw everyone looking at Yu Qianqiu, he, who had been silent, pulled Yu Qianqiu and said, "You aren't even going to buy such a treasure?" Yu Qianqiu didn't even turn his head and said, "TSK. Such a small bottle can be casually filled with anything, and it can be taken out as a treasure." The surroundings were originally quiet, and since everyone's cultivation wasn't that weak, they naturally heard what he said clearly. Everyone instantly felt like fainting. It felt like this fellow bought items according to the price. What a talent! Wu Liqing was almost choked by him to the point that he couldn't speak. He swallowed his saliva and said awkwardly, "Don't think that this bottle is small. The key is that the item inside is valuable. Right now, the base price is 800,000. If we were to sell it, we could at least double the price." "Is that so?" Yu Qianqiu struggled to stand up and looked at the people behind him with doubt. He thought, then why aren't they saying anything? Sigh. I really have no use for this item. Forget it, I will just treat it as giving Wu Liqing some face. After all, it wasn't a glorious matter for the Wu clan to have an unsold item. I will just treat it as spending money to do a favor. He nodded and said, "I believe you. I will buy it. 800,000. Hearing this, Wu Lixue raised her paddle and looked at the people behind her with a proud expression. She didn't want to worry about the Wu clan right now, and she was looking forward to buying it herself. Those who knew that she was Wu Lixue and understood her temperament didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This silly girl was hopeless. Although this item was useless to Yu Qianqiu, it was very useful to other sects, especially those sects that had top-grade spiritual herbs. Even if the sects didn't have top-grade spiritual herbs, who could guarantee that they wouldn't encounter it in the future? With the wood spirit liquid, the big problem would be solved. This time, no one would be courteous to Yu Qianqiu. Just as Wu Lixue put down her paddle, the crowd instantly exploded. Someone immediately shouted, 900,000. Someone immediately increased the bid by 100,000. Following that, someone shouted, 1,100,000. They all skipped the price difference of 50,000 and increased it by 100,000. When it reached 2 million, Wu Lixue couldn't sit still anymore. She kept looking at Yu Qianqiu, as if she was asking, "Why aren't you shouting yet?" Yu Qianqiu didn't plan to buy this item. Originally, he was bidding to give face to the Wu clan. Now that there was someone supporting him, it wasn't his business anymore. The people behind the Wu clan's front desk instantly let out a sigh of relief. They finally realized that it wasn't because the item wasn't good enough, but because they were waiting for Yu Qianqiu to ignite the fire. However, he clearly ignited the fire last round, so why didn't there be any reaction? This matter became a mystery that the Wu clan couldn't solve for many years. The grand auction that was held once every 5 years finally had the fiery scene it should have. The price of a bottle of wood spiritual fluid kept rising. When the price reached 3 million, not to mention Wu Lixue, even Yu Qianqiu was a little tempted. He didn't expect this item to be so valuable, so he carefully considered whether he should join in the fun or not. However, when the price increased by 300,000, he immediately rejected it. Damn it. These guys are all pretending to be pigs to eat tigers. No matter how much money I have, I can't stop their fiery passion even if I throw it down. The key is that this item is really useless to me. What's the use of buying it at a high price? I can't be impulsive, impulsive is the devil. Therefore, he completely gave up this round. Wu Lixue pouted her little mouth under the black cloth. It was really boring to just watch others' excitement. When the price reached 6,900,000 high-grade spirit stones, the passion on the scene subsided. Finally, no one touched the red line of 7 million. It wasn't that they didn't want to touch it, but no matter how good the item was, when the price was so high that they couldn't afford it with their own strength, naturally, no one would touch it again. Everything had its value. Moreover, the items that came out later would definitely not be worse than this item. The people on the scene were all experienced people, and they wouldn't do things that were too impulsive. The item now belonged to its owner. Everyone suddenly realized that the first buyer only called out a price, and then there was no response after that. Those people from the small sects who were short of money in the previous round were scared out of their wits. Fortunately, they didn't use the spirit of brotherhood. This lunatic really did something like calling out a price. If they really called out 510,000 last time, and this guy didn't say anything, they would definitely be killed by him. This person couldn't be judged by common sense. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.